might be, but it also might be true.
It might be true.
Looks like it's true. Looks like it's true.
I didn't bring my computer plug.
But for
That was my
Hadley
computer.
I'm sure somebody's got one. Plug it in.
Sorry, I'll just my phone for so long.
Would you agree?
This is gonna be fun.
Well, I put mine, there,
What do you got?
I put my bag down there, it's out of the way, I think. How are you, ma'am? 6:30. Tell me when you're ready, sir.
I'm ready.
Ask Tammy. When you're ready.
Getting it, yeah.
Something else here.
It's a YouTube.
Yeah. Do a little Netflix or Hulu, huh?
Oh yeah, well, this is like, this is nice.
Whole crowd.
Public interest, Cody.
Morgan County Mooresville.
I heard both Sox fans, so.
It's over with.
Now, is this one gonna?
Hey, you're a magician. It's just one remote, two TVs.
Now, camera's ready, she's ready. Did you get all the documents?
I did, I just didn't print them out.
I printed it out. That works.
Did you read them?
I'm all of it now.
There's only one way in and one way out, right?
Well, she may not be able to get the speakers on down. Mark's in.
Are we good?
There's two. There's two on this.
Right, she says we're ready.
Mark, is your speaker on?
And the Hadley Road one.
My mic's on too. Just say it. The end speakers are not on, Tammy.
Are all the mics on?
Mine is.
I think yours is on.
Mark?
Nope.
David? Is yours on?
Somewhere on.
There's a switch on the side, Tammy, by the organ there that turns those on.
She's working on it. She's working on it.
Looks like they're on, but
I think that one's on. That one's on. That one's not. So it's like every other one or something.
Is yours on?
Mine's not, yours is, I think.
There's two out there.
Yeah. It's on now. I assume they're on. I think we're on. I can hear myself echoing.
Okay.
I think we're good.
We will begin the August 12th Planning Commission meeting. First thing on the agenda is the previous minutes. Do we have any corrections or additions? If not, do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
I had one minor correction that I've already given to this, to Tammy to take care of. Just a word misspelling. Other than that, I had no other corrections.
Anyone else?
Nope.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. We accept the minutes as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries. First item on the agenda will be East Hadley Road, which has been continued to primary plat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ross Holloway, Holloway Engineering, here tonight for Sean Stewart and others. And with me tonight also is Dale Coffey, law firm of Bourne, Dolliver and Coffey, representing Mr. Stewart also. I won't go into a lot of things, but I will talk about some of the changes that we made since the last time we were here, and that all this information was sent to all of the Plan Commission members via Miss Van Hook. We appreciate that. I know it was a pretty big package. So anyway, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. At the top, we modified the entrance. We widened out some of the island. We still have 24 feet exiting, 2 full lanes, not including the curb. The entrance is 16 feet. That was reduced more in keeping with a norm. 18 feet was excessively wide, and some research showed that it could be confusing. People thinking there was 2 lanes, which in fact there was 1. But in the end of the day, you've got 40 feet of pavement, not including the curbs, down to the intersection of Valley Oak. And then we modified the pavement to give 38 feet of pavement, again, not including curbs, all the way down to the first cross street, Post Oak Drive and Burr Oak Drive. From there, the development circulates clear around, so there should be an even flow of traffic should, in the event something happened, north. One of the other things we did, we added a fence, 48-inch chain link fence between the playground and the basin here. Last time we were here, we spoke that this basin would be dry detention. We decided that it is large enough that it can be a retention basin, so it will be a wet pond. 48-inch fence is to secure the pond from the playground to keep errant children from wandering. We've also added a emergency drive, temporary, for the first section, which is the northernmost section. That would be constructed simultaneously with the northernmost section, and when we start the second section, that would be removed and become permanent pavement, 26 feet wide, again, including the curbs. Going down to the southwest corner, we have a 48-inch chain link fence along the Grandview boundary from this point here to the southwest corner of Grand Oaks, again to secure the detention basin from folks to the west. One other thing that we did, we made sure that we now have 9.07 acres of open space, which ever so slightly exceeds the 10% of the total development. We also had the traffic study updated. No surprises there, and that was forwarded to you as well. And I don't have it tonight. It's pretty boring reading. There were a limited number of cars going west through Grandview. I think the total was like 10 or 12 a day during the peak hour. So pretty minor. We are having a traffic study updated to reflect how that's distributed, but the traffic count is so minor that it won't have any impact on level of service or anything like that. I'm not going to go over all the things that we talked about last time. We believe the plat meets the requirements of the ordinance, and therefore, I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have concerning the plat itself. Then I'll be turning it over to Mr. Coffey.
Questions from the Planning Commission, concerns for Mr. Holloway?
I have a question.
Yes.
This is going to be developed by section, is that correct?
Yes, there are 5 sections, starting from the north and working our way south. 1 is here, 2 is here, 3 is in the middle, then 4 or 5, depending on how, quite frankly, the excavated material works out. In all likelihood, the 4th section will be here in the southwest corner for drainage reasons.
As far as infrastructure for this, will the infrastructure be built by section or for the entire plat?
Infrastructure has to be built by section.
Okay.
Obviously, because a lot of it is under pavement or behind curbs and things like that. What we do, though, is a sort of a master plan for utilities, so we don't have any surprises down the road. The only thing that I can say that would be not part of Phase 1 that would have to be built simultaneously with Phase 1 is likely a lift station down here near the southwest side of the development to pump up to the sanitary sewer. The sanitary sewer that's existing runs right along here, down to here, catty corner here, and then through Grandview, and that is a 10-inch sanitary sewer and does have capacity. Water, there's 2 sources of water. Hill Water has a main along the east side, the entire length, and in fact their easement straddles the property line, and Indian American has a main that terminates right here. So there are 2 sources of water. Telephone, electric, and gas are in Hadley Road.
Yeah, as you do a section, there'll be utility lines run to each lot in that section?
Yes, yes, we do stub out laterals for the sanitary sewer and water, so that once things are done, the utilities are ready to go.
Taken to the property line?
Yes, yes,
And you say you have 2 water sources there?
yes.
Will this be zoned, or will they be intertidal? Will they be...
No, they'll be, the whole community will be one water service or the other. They won't be 2 separate companies. The way IDEM has it set up, really for water, unlike sanitary sewer, it's first come, first served, first guy in the door, and that's basically, in this case, would be the developer's call. They would have a contract with that water company to, usually what happens, they construct the infrastructure, in this case water mains, and that includes meter pits, valves, everything, and then they pay for all of that, turned over to the water company, and then the water company turns on the valve.
And fire flow for the subdivision, all that in accordance with state requirements for
Yes.
fire flow considerations?
Absolutely.
And Hill Water has got adequate water to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The pressure is good, and Hill Water is in the process of doing some significant improvements, i.e. New water mains, new water treatment plants, to the tune of several $1 million.
And their timeline is going to coincide with the development?
In fact, the first section might get built before their new plant is online, but because of NICEPAC and they're moving south of town, their water demands are such that it will require a new plant. I think they're scheduled to come online in late 2022, and the new plant will be up near that time or shortly thereafter, maybe early 23.
Thank you.
You plan on starting with section 1?
Yes.
Is now the time to address parking on the streets?
We believe the plat meets the requirements, and with that, I'm going to let Mr. Coffey address that, but I would remind the board or the commission that we have room for 6 off-street parking spaces, 10 by 20, without impinging on the sidewalk. So that would be six spaces for each dwelling, which exceeds the ordinance requirements for a 3-bedroom house.
Any other questions or comments from the commissioners?
And I just make sure that, I'm looking at your submittal that you gave us, that you referenced. Did you mention about the walking paths being removed?
No, I didn't. Thank you for reminding me. The walking path, per the Tech Reviews Committee, we had a walking path completely circling the larger basin down here. That was eliminated per the request of the Tech Review Committee. The walking path up here, we kept it on the north side, mainly because we got some ground open space between the walking path and the retention basin, such that there wasn't near the safety issue there would be if it was circulating around it.
And in addition to the other things that you mentioned, I don't know if you noted this when you talked about the changes to the right turn lane and taper development, that was an outcome of the traffic study, is what
That
you
is
said?
correct. The traffic study, let me zoom in here. The traffic study recommended a right turn only based upon the traffic counts and traffic flow and traffic volume. No other improvements were required at this time. I assume someday, if the development proceeds eastward, like I'm sure the town would like for it to, and overall traffic increases on Hadley Road, there would be some improvements done here. But at this time, based upon the traffic study, and the traffic study looks at several things. They look at the existing conditions. They factor in a growth, which they call some background, and then they look at how much traffic the development itself was generated, and altogether, the right turn lane was warranted. The other things that we had shown were not.
And in that same bullet list, you noted that the only other change, and I think you alluded to this earlier, in addition to the revised plat, was that the revised study that includes the Johnson Road, Grandview, State Road 144 data will be submitted as soon as available. So you're saying that's not yet available? That
is not yet available, but as I'm going to reinforce here now, based upon the low number of vehicles that exit onto Johnson Road going south, it's anticipated that there will be absolutely no impact on the level of service for Johnson Road and 144.
And those are the only changes that you
Yes,
had?
that's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm that this
Right.
list was right. Okay, thank you.
I think, did Mr. Diedelin ask for a diagram for 2 entrances or 2 exits on this? Did you ask for that?
Yes, I did.
We chose not to do that. We believe the current plat meets your requirements per the ordinance for R1C zoning. The traffic study did not indicate it was warranted. The fire marshal and the police chief did not indicate it was warranted, and we chose not to do it because we believe the plat as it stands meets all the requirements of the zoning ordinance and the subdivision control ordinance.
And I believe you presented a letter to us from the police chief and from the fire marshal stating that they found this to be sufficient, but I did not see where that was a second entrance was presented to them as an option.
It was not, because we presented the plat as presented to the Plan Commission. It is sufficient. It meets the ordinance. It meets the traffic study requirements, and therefore to do anything else is superfluous.
Was the addition of the emergency entrance from the west a result of that discussion with them?
I believe it might have been the verbal discussion, yes, the meeting.
All right, thanks.
But I might remind you that that is temporary. When Section 2 is developed, there will be permanent pavement there.
So when you originally started talking to them, that was not there?
That is correct.
And then after you talked to them, it was added?
That is correct.
Okay, just wanted to clarify
Yes.
that.
Other questions or comments from the commission? Back to you, Mr. Holloway.
Mr. Coffey.
Thank you. My name is Neil Coffey. I'm here tonight on behalf of the developer. As Mr. Holloway said, we've taken a look at the plat, we've taken a look at your ordinance, we've compared the plat as presented this evening to your ordinance, and we believe it complies in all ways. The ordinance does not require 2 entrances, so we believe we comply with this. We're asking you tonight, we believe you have a duty tonight to approve the primary plat as you look at your ordinance. If we check all the boxes, it is to be approved. Your ordinance uses the word shall approve. We don't believe there's any discretion in that, and so we're asking you to do that this evening. One thing I did want to address that we had, I think, presented last time, and possibly it muddied the waters a little bit, so we've chosen to not even talk about that tonight, but I wanted to explain that. We'd introduced some covenants and restrictions last time. That's something that is not normally done at a primary plat approval process. It comes much later in the scheme of things here when we start talking about final plat approval and that sort of thing. So we are going to have covenant restrictions that are come back. I'm going to rework some of them and bring them back at a later date. But as far as tonight is concerned, again, we do believe that this in all respects meets your current ordinance. And we're asking you tonight to find that it does and give us approval for our primary plat. Be glad to answer any questions you may have from a more legal point of view. Mr. Holloway obviously is the technical guy as far as the plat itself is concerned.
So you're going to rework the covenants and restrictions?
That's correct, yeah. And again, that's something that you folks don't normally see at a preliminary stage or a primary plat stage. We'll bring those back before you when we start talking about our final plat approval and those sorts of things.
So as a question, first of all, they were submitted with original submittal, so, I'm just, until I have something else to look at, I guess I can refer to that, and then, of course, you're going to rework it, that's fine. In as much as it affects the things that affect a primary plat, such as safety, public welfare, those sorts of things, they can be used as a reference document, because I'm assuming that, for now, we can do that. Sure. So, okay, so you would still like for us to render a decision even without this?
That's true, and I think I'll remind you that when the town council approved the rezone, there was also some commitments that went with that rezone. And so obviously we're already bound by those commitments. And so the covenants and restrictions obviously will talk about other things than the commitments, and then obviously we are also bound by the commitments.
Have all those commitments been documented at the town council?
I believe they were in the ordinance itself. So that would, yes.
Other questions from the planning commission? Comments?
So to get this correct, like the fencing and the walking trails and all that only play a factor in the primary plot. Like, discussing like he just said, putting up the fence and all that, none of that has to do with the primary plot.
Not necessarily. I mean, I guess some of it does in a way, and I agree, some of that's more final plat stuff, but we've already put it on there, so we're already committed to it. We're going to do it. Tell you we're going to do it. So, yeah, it's there, and if you approve this tonight under those, that it will be constructed as that.
With that said, I've talked to several homeowners in Grandview, and they say a fence is not necessary.
Yeah, and I can talk a little bit about that. Under your ordinance, you have what's called buffer yard requirements, okay? And under your table 1 of that ordinance, in a residential subdivision with a buffer between residential and agricultural, you require a 40 feet open space. That's all it's required. Your ordinance does not require a fence, any sort of mounding, or any sort of buffering wall or anything. So we're giving you, in this particular plat, the mounding. So that's our buffering. But all we're required to do under your ordinance is 40 feet of open space. That's it.
So we could remove that fence behind the Grandview if we wanted again, or?
Because
I just,
again, that-
I've talked to
requirement.
several of those,
Yeah,
and,
okay.
they'd rather see either open or they'll put their own fence. 'cause-
Sure.
Josh, just to provide some extra clarification, so this is the primary plat that they are presenting. There are some extra items on there, again,
Right.
that you don't traditionally see on a primary plat. That's what they're committing to at this point. They'll have to do design later and come back before this board, so that doesn't mean that that's necessarily final. That's what they've presented.
Okay,
You can
so it
still
be ta-
negotiate at that
It can be
point.
taken off later then.
It could be. It could be added to or taken off.
Okay.
So, does the planning commission understand that we can still add to or take off at the secondary?
When we do design standards, there can be conditions that are requested. We will have a different conversation of whether it can be required, but there can be conditions that are requested
I understand.
at a
Even though
later
they're
point.
not required, we can request them.
Correct.
Other comments, questions?
I just have one question. I'm just wondering why one entrance? It's an awfully large development for one entrance, and there's a lot of traffic on Hadley.
There's going to be two entrances. There's going to be a continuation from Grandview into the neighborhood. That's the other entrance.
Okay.
I think at one time we had someone ask a resident of Grandview that that entrance be closed. And I don't know the technicality of that, but I know the cut was there, but I don't know if it has to go through.
It's going to be there because I need it there to have means of egress for fire equipment. That other means of egress is for fire service equipment and police.
You're saying there should be two entrances?
There, and that's what the other one's for. That's why we haven't put it in.
Or even for section 1?
Yeah, and they're putting it in for us.
Right.
To answer the question is that the plat of Grandview shows the public right-of-way extending all the way to the property line. And actually, they've made the radius turnout and some pavement, but not near all of it. And water lane main stubs out almost to the property line. So the right-of-way is there. It's public right-of-way. It belongs to the town of Mooresville. And it's our intent to use that public right-of-way to extend the public street into the development. So
I find it interesting that the traffic study did not warrant a second entrance, but the emergency folks did.
The traffic study looks at traffic volumes and turning movements and in and out and things like that, and if there's going to be bottlenecks or restrictions or those issues. They would only get concerned from a public safety standpoint if, in fact, the entrances that they're recommending could not be provided. In this case, they knew there were going to be two entrances, one north with the wide pavement boulevard type, and then the secondary entrance to the west. So they knew all those things. So having known that, and then they looked at the traffic study and the traffic generated, no other entrances, no other changes were warranted. In fact, they said that only a right turn in would be warranted, so off of Hadley.
I find it interesting that we have a stop sign, a four-way stop on Hadley Road at Johnson and the Springs Nursing Facility. And I pulled in the parking lot there and observed, and there's very little traffic at that intersection. And I would suspect that there's going to be more traffic in and out of this subdivision than there is at that intersection. So they're saying that there's no signals or anything that needs to be done for safety there.
The town certainly could do something if they so chose, but the traffic study didn't require any signalization, any kind of traffic control, other than they look at traffic movements, and the impact, quite frankly, would be as much on the development as it would on Hadley Road, but they did not require any kind of traffic management devices.
Other comments or questions?
as I stated several meetings ago, that I think that it would be interesting to see a second entrance off of Hadley Road, as was mentioned earlier, rather than a temporary emergency entrance that has to be maintained in all weather conditions, snow, ice, rain, that may be problematic in terms of accessing during emergency conditions. And I find it problematic that that was not provided to us, even though there was 60 to 120 days provided notice to provide that. Not only for this, and it's also apparently warranted for Section 1, as well as the rest of the sections. And I understand and I appreciate the JD's comments there, but I would prefer to see that provided to us before we render a decision on the primary plat.
Again, my statement to that would be that your plat does not require it. If the plat would have, your ordinance does not require it, the ordinance would have required it, then that would be something we had to do. Again, we believe that you need to take action on this evening under your current ordinance and what the requirements are of your ordinance. And we believe that this plat in all ways meets that. If the town council decides they would like something different changed, they can always modify their ordinance. But at this point, we believe this board is bound by the ordinance that's been published.
I also noticed that we discussed widening some of the streets, and that was not found to be desirable in the last meeting. And now you've chosen to widen Grand Oaks Drive, or Boulevard, I think it's called, down to the first intersection. But you don't extend it further south beyond that to allow additional access, to allow parking along that road. I would like to see that extended as well.
I guess my comment to that again would be
For public safety reasons.
Going back to the ordinance. And your ordinance requires 26 feet of pavement, which is what we have. And as you noted, in some respects, some areas we've widened that, but we don't believe it's warranted throughout the subdivision itself. Mr. Holloway pointed out the way these lots will be lined out, there'll be 6 spaces per home, 3-bedroom home, off-street parking. So we believe it's plenty of parking off-street. And again, the width of the pavement as we proposed on this plat is what the ordinance requires.
I know that some time ago we requested that they show us 2 entrances to this. It may not be required, but we can ask for it. The Planning Commission has that authority to ask for above and beyond. Everything you have is a minimum requirement.
Mr. Young, I respectfully disagree with that. I believe that you have an ordinance that sets forth the requirements that the person that comes in, the applicant comes in, has to know what are my requirements to get this plat approved. So he looks at your ordinance, he takes his plat, he makes sure that that plat meets ordinance in all respect. He comes in, your ordinance says you shall approve it. That's what it says. That's the word shall. And if you're talking about you think you can give different standards, well, you got to have those standards published because you got to know what the standards are. You got to know what the rules are of the game. You can't come in and say, well, your rules of this game is this. Another applicant comes in and says, no, you got different rules. That's not the way it is. And so again, respectfully, we disagree with that. And again, we believe that this does meet your ordinance, and we're asking tonight for you to approve it.
So if you present to us something that we consider to be insufficient in terms of safety and insufficient in terms of public welfare, that does not fence off the properties to the east and to the south, and that does not provide adequate entrances off of there for safety reasons, we can turn it down and you can come back later. You would prefer that? Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that...
Well, in your opinion, you think it provides everything that you think is a value, and then we can assess whether or not we agree with you, right?
Well, all I know is that from a legal point of view, we have certain
requirements that we need to meet on a plat, primary plat. And that's where we believe we are tonight. We believe that you have a certain obligation, and that's what we're asking you to follow.
And you think our obligation is what?
If this ordinance, or I'm sorry,
If this plat meets your ordinance, what's set out in the ordinance.
then you have to approve it.
And if we find it insufficient, then we can choose not to approve it,
And I
right?
believe you ought to find what's insufficient about it pursuant to your ordinance.
I believe the ordinance says if we find it insufficient, we have to have a finding of fact and provide that to the petitioner. Is that correct?
Well, you need to specify why you're not going to approve the plat.
Right.
In other words, you can't be arbitrary and capricious.
Understand. Thank you very much.
Any other comments from the commission? Questions? Anyone from the public wish to ask questions? State your name and address.
Yes, I'm Brian Turley. I live at 13342 North Allison Drive in Canby. I'm here. My mother owns the property to the east. Again, I spoke about it last time. The disappointing thing that I really dislike is the fact that there was a commitment made by the petitioner to provide a fence along the east side of the property as well as the south side, and that no longer exists today. I mean, that was a commitment made in a private meeting at Ross Holloway's office. I think if you ask him, he would probably explain that exactly what was said. They've decided to remove that, which some would say, what's a fence really do? Well, what's a lock on a door really do? You know, it's a deterrent. It's a means to keep people boundary separated. I've always heard that what makes good neighbors is a good fence. I think that is probably the case here. I also find it interesting that they've decided to put a fence along the Grandview side of the detention pond, but there's really been nothing done, as I understand it, on the south side. So if it's for a safety reason, you would think at a minimum it would be that there would be a fence along the south side as well. That's probably the biggest complaint I have. We have never been against the development in this project. In fact, it's in our benefit to have this property developed. We've said that on many occasions. So we would like to see a development go in here. I would tell you that we've strongly contended that we want the best for Mooresville. We think Mooresville deserves a good subdivision to go in here. That doesn't mean it can't be, you know, so many square feet or whatever else. But again, it's our position that we want the best that Mooresville deserves in there. And if this isn't it, I would strongly encourage you to vote against it. Again, I spoke last time about the trip down Landersdale Road. It's kind of it's not a great trip, and I know that there's a lot of school corporations that drive down Landersdale Road, and again, there's a hodgepodge of homes down through there with fences of different types and so on and so forth. I think Ross spoke last time that, well, you can write that into the covenants and that sort of thing, but again, there's no continuity between the fences. You could have chain link fence here, you could have a privacy fence over here, and it's embarrassing to me as a member of Mooresville knowing that we've got people from Plainfield and Greenwood driving down Landersdale Road, and they're seeing homes that and maybe it doesn't bother everybody, but I mean, we're looking at backyards, we're looking at tarps over lean-tos that are on the back there. We've got a hodgepodge of fences down through there. And it can all be corrected now, but it needs to be corrected now. So I would encourage you to really keep your foot on the pedal on trying to make sure that we get the best that Mooresville deserves. And that's really what this is about. And that's the reason I'm up here speaking tonight. So again, I think the fence is very important, at least from a safety standpoint. And again, it was a commitment that was made by the petitioner that they've kind of reneged on, which it sounds like now they're changing some commitments on the covenants. I don't know if it's a bait and switch. I don't know what we're doing. I don't know if it's a hoodwink. I don't really know what's going on anymore. But they kind of lawyered up here a little bit tonight to, I don't know if that's something to really encourage everybody to make a positive vote or where we're headed, but again, I would encourage you all to do what's best for Mooresville, which is why I'm up here speaking. So thank you for your time.
Can I ask you some questions before you step
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I heard them say that they are willing to meet the buffer zone, or the buffering commitments
Right.
of 40 feet between
Right.
residential and agricultural.
Right.
This plat shows some mounds on there, which may or may not end up there at the farm.
Exactly. That's my fear.
It's unclear, based upon what their comments were here recently.
Right.
But you mentioned a fence. What kind of fence were you thinking?
Well, at the time, the commitment that was made, and Ross can again speak to this, but it was a 4-foot chain link fence. I mean, it's a simple fence along that east side just to provide a separation, because it's going to become an issue. And I would think from the standpoint of the development itself, I think that would be a selling point for people that want to build homes in there, and to be separated from their neighbors. It would allow them a possibility to provide some connecting fences, and I don't know if people are going to put pools in out there. I would assume they will. Again, just a means to help them as well. So I would think that it would be kind of a selling point. But again, that's not my take.
Is the purpose of the fence then to prevent folks from this new development from accessing your property? Is that what you're...
That's my ultimate fear, because I think there's, we have a pond on our side as well, and there's issues over there as well, and I don't want to be calling the cops every day to say, hey, look, we've got some trespassers over here, and so on and so forth. So, and I think the property to the south would be the same way. I think it's a little thing to do, and that would make me a happy camper. So, okay, thank you
very much. Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience wish to speak?
Oh, so right here.
I just have a quick question, if I may. My name is Mike Dellinger. I'm with the Morgan County Economic Development Corporation. My question is for council. Does this conjecture matter on the primary plat?
Fencing?
Right.
No.
Right. And then secondly, was the Advisory Planning Commission president accurate when he said that they can ask for...
Oh, that's not appropriate I would not be something I want to answer publicly.
Very much.
What was his question?
He wanted me to confirm or deny whether your question was appropriate.
I'm going to pass out some letters here. I don't have enough. I'll give you mine.
I don't count, it's fine.
Thank you. I'm Jeff Turtle, a brother of Brian that just spoke, 4833 East Hadley Road. I just wanted to address one issue. I prepared a letter that I was going to mail today, but I decided I was just going to deliver that this evening and address this issue. It's just the one issue. And I'm going to read portions of this letter so I don't forget. On prior occasions, public objections have been raised regarding a conflict of interest that a Plan Commission member has relating to the proposed Grand Oaks project. We again request that the Commissioner with this conflict of interest assent to this circumstance, recuse himself from any discussion, and abstain from any decisions in this matter. In the event the Commissioner refuses, we request the Board of Commissioners take action to remove the violating Commissioner from the proceedings. Indiana Code 36-7-4-223 states that a Plan Commission member may not participate in a hearing or decision concerning a matter in which he has a conflict of interest when the member has a direct or indirect financial interest in the outcome of the decision. The intention of the statute is that the member with the conflict of interest may not participate in the hearing or decision in any way. The member is not technically required to leave the room unless the commission's rules require it. Because the member with the conflict is banned from participating, he is not allowed to testify during the public hearing and is not permitted to vote on any decision. The Indiana statute dictates that ownership of property involved in a petition or employment by a party involved in a petition would be examples of direct financial conflicts of interest. Commissioner Robert Allenball is employed by Sunco Construction Company. Mr. Hopwood is a principal agent of Sunco and is a party involved as petitioner of this project. As such, Mr. Allenball has a direct pecuniary conflict of interest and should be removed from any participation in this matter. I simply want to add that this is not a personal attack on you, Mr. Allenball. It's just an issue of ethics that we ask the commission to address. Thank you.
I ask you those 4 questions again, or no?
Pardon?
Yeah, we went through this at the last meeting. Do you have a direct financial interest in this development?
No.
Do you have an indirect financial interest in this development?
No.
Will you gain anything if it is approved?
No.
Are you, another reason for conflict of interest is if you're biased. Are you biased one way or another that you cannot be objective in your vote in this project?
No.
Based on his representations before everybody, I can't force him to recuse himself.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Do you have a yearly review?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you have a yearly review with your company?
No.
Well, that is an exception to the rule, then. But do you get raises?
I haven't gotten a raise since I've worked there.
Pardon?
I have not gotten a raise since I started with Sunco.
Well, maybe if you voted, you might get a raise.
Well,
If
maybe.
you voted yes. So,
Maybe.
in my opinion,
It's
you
not a
have
condition of my employment.
You have a financial interest. Ken, I think code says that we can poll the members of the planning commission. Is that correct?
I'm not familiar with that provision, but
Well, I think that
It's passed
I
the
have-
planning
I have-
commission,
Pardon?
the town council's already approved it, so my vote on that is done, right, for the plat process?
I don't understand.
yeah, you're correct. The zoning has already happened. This is just the primary plat.
Okay.
But your vote still counts on this primary
Okay,
plat
yeah.
if you don't recuse yourself.
Maybe I can clear this up a bit, because Sunco is not a developer. They're not the developer, they're not the applicant, so that should solve the problem. There's no conflict. They're not part of the development.
I
They have
beg
no-
to differ. They've been here at meetings, they've made
It's
presentations.
a public meeting, they can come. But they are not part of the developer, they are not the applicant. So this does not matter.
I don't want to get into debate here, sir.
Perhaps Sunco's not directly involved with this project, but Mr. Hopwood is. Mr. Hopwood is a principal of Sunco and is an employer of Mr. Allenball. And the statute clearly defines that as a financial conflict of interest. And I would simply add that if the commission decides to vote on this matter tonight, that it would not be appropriate to allow Mr. Allenball to vote. And in absence of that, we might wish to request a continuance so that we could seek legal counsel to have this reviewed.
I'm Mr. Hopwood, and I am not a part of the petitioner of this subdivision. I will have the opportunity to bid as a builder of the subdivision, but I am not involved in this process as it stands now. Thank you.
When-
this process, I can recuse myself.
When we had an
so can go along
executive,
Tonight.
You have that option if you would publicly recuse yourself, or that is your option.
Okay. I mean, we've been dragging this out for 13 months. So if it means we get a vote tonight, yes or no on this, I can recuse myself. You know, I just don't want to. So I will recuse myself so we can move the process along.
I appreciate that.
And then this don't mean anything, but my last name's misspelled. Is that just for this meeting here, if it comes back again?
Correct. That is
Okay.
just for this vote.
What was the question, Robert?
He wanted to know if it was for this petition before him for this vote.
Okay, yes. Any other questions or comments? Anyone else from the audience wish to speak? Please state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Eileen Mathers, residing in Mooresville. My husband, Jim Mathers, and myself are the sole south border property owners adjacent to the Jessup farm field. We have owned our property 25 years and have established a hardwood tree farm that is enrolled in the classified forest program with the state. We have made a financial and an environmental commitment with this property. That is why I come here again before this commission to request fencing and mounding on our border from the Grand Oaks development. We were told on 2 to 3 different occasions at previous Plan Commission meetings per Mr. Holloway that they would provide mounding and fencing. And then at the last Plan Commission in July, he stated there would be no fence or mounding because Mr. Stewart said it was not cost effective. Mr. Holloway also stated you can't stop trespassers. And for that statement, it seems to fit the fact of him deleting the fence. We all know fences do work. I was informed by a town council member that we should have brought up the fencing, mounding at the May 4th town council meeting when it was okayed, the zoning was okayed on Hadley Road. I didn't know that. Who knew? And why would the Mathers-Turley property owners do that when we had been told in previous meetings it would get done? I, for one, would like to see point by point what these developers will do. It seems it changes every meeting for what they want, and the Mooresville community is on the losing end. Secondly, the mere density of this development rings of traffic congestion and problems for which all current area homeowners will pay the price. Better traffic flow should be investigated. This development's drawing shows only one park playground area. Realizing the density of this subdivision, it seems more parks and playgrounds should be provided. And third, the required paperwork at the town hall that I went to see shows Susan Maddox, Sean Stewart, and Keegan Hopwood as the developers of Grand Oaks. That, I feel, presents a conflict of interest issue for the commission member, Mr. Allenbaugh, who is employed by Sunco. We know Mr. Hopwood is an owner-operator of Sunco. And again, according to the law, as Mr. Turley mentioned, be it direct or indirect, financial interest is a factor. And I would like for the commission to delve into that, and if these categories are present, that they require commission action. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak? Any commissioner have comments, concerns?
From what I've heard from the public as well as what we've been presented tonight, I still have many concerns about the lack of provision of the requested second entrance option that's been presented, the fence question regarding the safety of the property owners adjacent to this, and then the other questions that have been brought up. Again, there were obviously changes between the last meeting and this meeting. There are continuing changes, and we now have, the provision not of the covenants and restrictions that are now going to be reworked. I just feel like the subdivision is not ready for review, and I think that the multiple requests we've had for a continuance would be warranted.
Approving of an appropriate subdivision is critical in the process of developing or maintaining a certain community character, as well as to promote the overall public health, safety, and general welfare. And I do not feel that we have been provided a second entrance. The fences for safety. I do not think we are ready for plat approval, primary plat approval. Other comments from the commissioners?
Comment. Whether I agree or disagree with the subdivision, I think it's hard. Whether I agree or disagree, it's hard to argue with the experts that did the traffic study. No one on this panel is an expert on traffic studies. I've reviewed the traffic study, looked at the data. If the experts say it's not necessary, I think we have to take that into consideration. But I also have a problem if commitments were made to fence and they change their mind and say they're not going to fence. I think that brings the credibility of the person that made that commitment into question. And that's what causes me as much concern as us questioning the validity of a traffic study. Approving a basic plot is different than a secondary plot. We need to look at this and see if some of these things we're talking about should be handled in the next meeting where we talk about maybe the finer nuances of the project. As far as recusing of the one gentleman, that's easy enough. If he agrees to recuse himself, he steps away from the microphone during a vote. I do have a problem when commitments are made, though, by a design firm, and they change their mind and say we're not going to do it now. That causes a lot of the discussion that we're having right now by the people that were in support of the project based on that commitment. So, I question the motives there. I think the motive comes down to dollars and cents for the cost of a 4-foot chain link fence. But I think we need to keep in mind that it's a basic plat approval that they're asking for. And as we move forward, we need to think about that. We're not talking about the finer aspects of color, size, materials, and so on. We're looking at basic plat approval. If they have satisfied the requirements as far as infrastructure development, which it appears they have, if they've satisfied the requirements as far as providing traffic studies, I think they have to look inward as far as owning up to the commitments that they made they were going to do early in the discussions, because they give the people a false sense of security, and when that credibility goes away, for me personally, it clouds everything they do, in my opinion, when they change their mind in midstream. So that's my position. I think we need to keep in mind that we're looking at basic plat approval. We're not looking at secondary plat approval.
Thank you for your opinion. Other comments or questions? Well, I think that the commission has the authority to have another traffic expert review the traffic study, if in fact we would want to. I think that the town had a company do a traffic study.
My only concern with that, no disrespect, would be that the Plan Commission doesn't operate on a budget, and I don't know that that would be a question for a town council member, because that would be a cost incurred by the town. So for us to ask for that, I don't know that we can just say we're going to have it done.
In the UDO, and I'm not going to quote the page, it said the Planning Commission can request a budget to have outside help in matters as far as a consultant or someone to take notes or minutes. So the Planning Commission has that authority and could get the money.
So you want to do another traffic study?
Pardon? I'm not saying that.
I believe they want to have this one reviewed by an expert. Is that correct? Did I understand that correctly?
But just like we would on stormwater, when stormwater is presented to us, we have an outside entity review it to ensure that it's accurate.
That's a budgeted item. That's
Right.
why, working for the town, I haven't heard of the Plan Commission taking on a task like that. I'm not saying I can't, I just don't know how, and I would want someone from the town council to say, yes, there's the money and it's here, and this is where you can spend it from. I just hadn't heard from that or heard it done that way before, so I would want clarification.
I would think the town council redevelopment commission, who just paid for the traffic study for downtown, would like to know that this is going to be coherent with all the roadways coming into Mooresville.
I would also like to see the complete traffic study, what the petitioner says is incomplete right now.
Any other comments? Questions? You want to summarize?
Who's making a motion, and
I asked Jeff to sort of summarize some of his thoughts there. We're not made a motion yet. I'm going to call for a motion in a minute.
Well, I have, as I expressed, I have concerns that that the safety of this, what's been presented to us, continues to change. We've heard from the public saying that there are safety concerns regarding the buffering between their properties and this property. There's concerns about illegal access from that property, which has been demonstrated and responded to in the past from on the east and south. As I said, I have concerns about, frankly, I have concerns whether or not that emergency entrance is going to get built, because I heard that the mounds may not be there either, based upon what the attorney said, and that the 40-foot buffer is all that there is willing to commit, which is what the ordinance requires. So I'm not sure how accurate this drawing is. So I am, or sketch is. So I am concerned that this is just not ready for us to render a decision on, because there's so many questions from the public and from our own self regarding incomplete of what is presented to us. And I think it would be prudent to allow time for people to finish what has been started, because as somebody mentioned, every time we've seen this, it's changed. Obviously, it changed tonight from what had been presented at the last meeting, and I suspect it will continue to change in substantial ways. So I am concerned about rendering a decision tonight, and I also am hesitant to have this be not approved and have to wait another year before it came back to us again.
If I might, just real quick, what you have before you tonight, we will commit to. So we will commit to that. Again, we believe that meets your ordinance for a primary plat, and we're asking you to approve the primary plat tonight. Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Bob's recusing himself.
I got 5. Motion carries. All those disapprove? Motion carries. The primary plat has been approved. At this time, I'll let the people that were here for this petition, if they want to leave, or if they can, welcome to stay. Next item on the agenda will be the primary plat for East Hadley, for County Line Road. That was, we've reversed these, we flipped them. Ferguson Road.
Anytime.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I said the next item on the agenda is, sorry.
If the commission's ready, this is the proposed Alison Estates. It's near the intersection of Ferguson Road and County Line Road, or Hendricks County Road. It consists of 73 single-family home lots. This plat is similar to the one you just approved in that it is a straight-up zoning issue. Tonight here we're for primary plat approval, just like the previous applicant. We did provide some additional documentation last Friday to the Plan Commission. That consisted of a noise study that was requested. The noise study showed 1.8 decibels of increase, which is negligible. We also provided documentation for the proposed buffering easement that would run along the north side. Provided those documents. We provided the updated traffic study, and per comments from the Tech Review Committee and their concern about the entrance, we widened the entrance out to, again, 40 foot of pavement, excluding curbs, and an island, and that 40 foot extends down to the first cross street before it goes down to the 26 feet of pavement. I would give you any questions you might have. The variance was granted for the percentage of lot coverage by the Board of Zoning Appeals. So tonight we're looking at a plat that meets the requirements of the ordinance in every respect except the one exception that was granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals. I might just remind the Commission that the same letter that you received from the Fire Marshal and the Police Chief that addressed the issue for Grand Oaks also said that the entrance here was adequate.
Number one, I don't know that the Fire Marshal and the Chief of Police have jurisdiction out in the buffer zone.
I will let them address that. They are a representative of the town of Mooresville. The town of Mooresville has planning and plat approval, so they were the likely individuals that one of these days, when this project is annexed into the town, which we hope will be in the near future, it would be their jurisdiction, so they were the likely candidates to go get their opinion. And I think they have mutual respect between the various agencies, so I don't think they would do anything out of line that the other agencies wouldn't have agreed to.
I just wanted to clarify. Go ahead.
So it is not in the town as of now?
It is not in the town of now. The town of Mooresville has planning and zoning jurisdiction. The Morgan County has drainage and road approval.
So who provides the emergency services for this piece of property right now?
Well, I'm sure there's a mutual aid agreement in place. Right now, it would be whoever gets there first.
But it would be within the county to provide the county sheriff, is that correct?
The county sheriff, but because of the mutual aid, I'm sure Mooresville would probably respond first.
And is this Brown Township?
Brown Township Fire, yes.
So did you solicit anything from them?
We were solicited from the fire marshal and from the chief of police here for Mooresville. I assume, but I didn't ask that question, that they have at least spoken with or talked to the Brown Township folks. I know that was discussed early on.
And as I noted in the earlier one, we requested requested that this entrance be moved to match the entrance of the service road across the highway from there, as well as an option for a second entrance to this. Is that being presented to us?
No, it is not. We, as in the previous applicant, found that this met the requirements of the zoning ordinance. The traffic study did not require any other entrances. The traffic study, in fact, said that this entrance was adequate and did not recommend any changes. In fact, the recommendation for this project, for the traffic study, was a right turn in, and of course, a taper out.
How many lots are in the subdivision?
73.
How many lots are in the first section of the previous
I'm not going to answer that. You should know that.
Are there less than 73?
There are less than 73, but I can tell you you're fishing up the wrong creek. This meets your plat, your ordinance, and we will not discuss it further.
Okay.
The traffic study, with all due respect, said that this was adequate. Your ordinance doesn't require any secondary entrance. It doesn't have a table that says after you reach a certain number of lots, you have a secondary entrance. This meets the requirements of your ordinance.
I won't ask the question, I'll just make a comment then.
Okay.
I find it inconsistent that we require a second entrance on the previous one and we don't require one on this one. I also find it inconsistent that we did not solicit the people who are serving this area from an emergency standpoint when we had asked for that in the past. I didn't ask the question, okay. I'm just a comment.
Okay, I'll make a comment.
Sure.
In that we believe we've got the most appropriate folks from a public safety standpoint, those folks that represent the town of Mooresville, not Brown Township. So your argument would be, well, why do you have Brown Township here? Where are the Mooresville folks? So I can see that coming into play. The entrance and the offset and all that and the number of lots, that's subjective. I know there are some ordinances that say you don't have to have a secondary entrance until you get up in the hundreds. So that's subjective whether it's adequate or not adequate. The fire marshal, the chief of police said both projects were adequate. I would rely upon their expertise. I'm not their professional as far as public safety and fire and police go. So I'm relying on the experts that are employed by the town of Mooresville.
Question?
Yes.
Water for this project provided by?
Excuse me?
Water provided
yes.
by?
This would be Citizens Water, Indian American Water. Okay. There will have to be a main extension from, I believe, from Hendricks County Road. Sanitary sewer will be provided by the town of Mooresville. There's I wish I'd turn this around the other way, but there is a sanitary sewer that runs right along the entire north boundary of the project. And there, just like the last project, it will require a lift station. The lower point is down here. So since this is being developed in a single phase, it would all be developed at the same time.
And cost of mainline extensions, the station will all be rolled into the cost of the project by the developer?
Yes, 100%.
So the city will realize no obligation on
No,
that?
the town of Mooresville, nor any other public agency for that matter, has any financial burden whatsoever.
Is adequate flow, fire flow, everything to
Yes.
comply with state requirements?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I'll ask the same question about the noise study. Who conducted the noise study?
I conducted the noise study.
With what kind of equipment?
Did you read the document I presented with, that we sent out in the email? It was all documented in that.
I am sorry I missed that one.
There it is. I won't go through everything, but specifically...
I know you signed it at the bottom, but...
Specifically, read instruments, sound level, meter data logger, model 28R2880, serial number, tripod mounted. Data recorded every 30 seconds.
Other questions or comments from the Planning Commission? Anyone from the audience wish to speak? Please.
My name is Sherry Sherby. I live on County Line Road, right down the street from there. My concern is getting out onto 67. It's a nightmare to get out there. So you're going to have even more traffic going across 67, which is a dangerous little intersection, by the way. Like, are we going to have stoplights there? I mean, this is a lot more homes that are all going to be going right there. I don't know. This is my first time at any one of these kind of meetings, but that's what I concern myself with.
I think there's commissioners on this board that understand the traffic issues there. I drive that way when I go to Plainfield, and I know that
Getting across 67 there it's terrible. It is absolutely terrible. That is a terrible little intersection right there. And the one in front of that is also bad. That you jump across to go over to Plainfield. I go to Plainfield to work every day.
The striping's wrong right there anyway. The one further north.
Yeah.
The striping's wrong.
Yeah. So that's my concern. So I just want to throw that out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
DOT, Department of Transportation, Potter County.
We can't hear you down there.
That's a good question. She asked who would be responsible for that. Tim, you might know this. That's right next to the towing company. The striping in the road right there. It's too far to the north. Is it DOT county?
State or county.
Yeah.
It's not Mooresville, it's a state or county issue.
It's definitely not us.
And we should have had a study there.
We have all the kids coming from Heartland Crossing, fly down County Line Road. I mean, I'm right there. And they all go to school, Mooresville School, and they all cross over 67.
They all cross over 67 right there by the not the towing, what is it? The veterinary clinic.
And
so I think a light or something needs to be there. It's very dangerous.
Have you ever reported that to the state?
No, I haven't. But then I'm here tonight.
No,
right?
I'm not questioning, I'm just.
Well, no,
Just
and I
asking.
haven't. No, and then now I'm like, wow, another huge giant development's going in.
Well, the upside is you can go left out of here and go back down.
We still
goes
can't
by the
hear
flea
you
market.
down there.
Sorry, you can go left out of the neighborhood and go down, hang a right, and then
Yeah, but
by the
that's-
flea market.
Yeah.
Well, that can be fun too. And also that intersection that you're talking about, people like to double up. Have you noticed that?
Yes, both of those.
They like to double up or sometimes triple up. I've had them triple up.
Yes.
Taking a shortcut. But when you're, especially when you're going left, it's a nightmare.
They'll have to go across. My kids go to Park Boulevard.
Please come to the mic, state your name and address, please. and-
Shelby Pewter Law, I live next door to them, just
Did
up
you
the
get that,
road.
Tammy?
So my question for you, I'm new to this, when traffic studies are performed, is there consideration for other nearby development? like these issues that we're addressing as separate, all look at a development that may came up the road as well, correct?
The traffic study should take all that into account if it's been properly done.
You're talking about the Ryan homes out east on county line?
Among others, but yes, that one is
Yeah,
active.
I don't think they come that way that often.
Okay. Thank you.
Actually, they do.
I just have a general question. What's the nearest city to us that actually employs a traffic engineer, that has a traffic engineer on their payroll? Is it only Indianapolis?
I mean, probably as an engineer. I don't know.
Do you know Martinsville?
No. It takes a pretty sized community to have a traffic engineer separate from, I believe Plainfield does, and Avon may, but that would be the closest. But, and don't quote me on that, but they would be the nearest communities large enough to warrant having a separate traffic engineer.
Could we get somebody from Plainfield that's closer to our community to do a traffic
The
study?
traffic study was certified by a professional traffic engineer. That's all they do. They're very well recognized in the trade.
Sure.
Goes back to your comment from, not yours specifically, the board's comment from the previous petition. If the Plan Commission was to do that, they would have to hire an engineer of their own to do a review. And as Tammy spoke, we don't know where the money's coming from, but that's not my concern. My concern is that I provided you with a traffic study by a certified traffic engineer. That's all they do. And to address the comments from the audience is the State Road 67 and County Line is controlled by NDOT 100%. This traffic study did take into account traffic coming from other directions and built in then the traffic control from this development. There was no change in the level of service. Believe it or not, this development doesn't generate that much traffic. You might think 73 lots do, but compared to the overall traffic at that intersection, it does not. So NDOT is the place to start, but NDOT has to warrant a traffic signal. That means they go through a very involved study because usually once traffic signals are up, they're there forever. So they want to make absolutely sure that it is warranted. So they would do their own traffic study, and there again, they don't do it internally. Usually they can hire consultants, such as the firm that did this study, to do those traffic warrant studies. For instance, we had to have one done for a project, large project we just finished up in Columbus, a nursing home project on State Road 46 west of I-69. It was not warranted. NDOT required us to do a warrant because we were exiting right out onto 46. The traffic study here says there's no change in level of services for that intersection, but even if there were, then NDOT would have to pull the plug or pull the switch, for instance, on.
Can you ask them about it?
No, it's not.
Ask NDOT?
I would not. But
like
anybody,
you personally,
anybody from the public can ask them to look at it.
Because they really have needed to do something with that intersection
I can tell you
before
this,
now.
it would have a lot more effort if it come from the county or Hendricks County or the town of Mooresville, somebody like that. Not to say citizens, they won't listen to you, they will. But if they get a lot of complaints, sometimes they'll do more. But it takes a lot of traffic to warrant a signal, particularly on something like 67.
Thank you.
Is it true, when I'm looking at your traffic study for this project, that you mentioned the level of service was not changed as a result of this subdivision? The level of service rating is from A through F, I think.
Yes, that is correct.
Is what's here, and that the intersections that we're talking about are rated as an F in both cases.
That's correct.
So adding more traffic to them will not make them worse than an F, which is the worst that they can provide. Is that correct?
That is correct. But I go back to my previous statement that compared to the overall traffic, this doesn't add much. But there again, if there was to ever be a traffic light at the intersection, it's going to be triggered by the volume of traffic, not by anything else.
You would not be in favor of us requiring you to put the subdivision in as a requirement to petition the state for a traffic light?
You don't have that authority.
from a public safety
You
standpoint?
do not have that authority. You don't have jurisdiction over that intersection.
In your opinion, thank you.
And I think, I'm not an attorney, but I think that would hold up too.
So an intersection, I think what they take into account is the traffic volume there, the number of lanes, and the geometry.
That is correct. One of several things, but yes. And peak hour usually.
Oh, is that are those Hendricks County schools those kids would be going to?
These would be in Mooresville schools because it's in the Morgan County side.
Oh, okay.
The road,
that's right.
Hendricks County Road is controlled by Hendricks County. A little further east is controlled by Marion County. The counties control the road on the south. So the intersections, once you get away from this intersection, are controlled either by Hendricks County or the state of Indiana. The only one that would be controlled by Morgan County is the Allison Road and Ferguson Road intersection.
So they'd be going to Northwood, or not Northwood, but
I can't answer that
North
question.
Madison. So they'd be going east.
I don't.
I just don't see how 73 homes isn't going to affect that 67 intersection.
I personally don't think so, but come on. Thank you.
It's just math, you know.
Anyone else from the audience wish to speak, please come up, state your name and address. We're back to the planning commission for questions.
I was kind of concerned about one entrance myself. And then I got to thinking of, is there anything else in Mooresville that sets a precedence that is there for one entrance into a subdivision? And there is. Roberson Woods does have one entrance in, one exit out. Knightsbridge, no, you can go in east and west. They have two entrances in.
It's the condos north of there that just has.
I don't know about the condos.
Bridgemore has two.
But I know Roberson Woods has one entrance.
I think Roberson Woods was developed 30, 40 years ago. And
yeah.
Since then, most subdivisions or developments, we have requested and required and obtained two. Other comments, questions?
As I stated before, I've asked for things that have not been provided, and I don't think the subdivision's ready to move forward. I think that one entrance is problematic. Roberson Village does have two entrances and has a much smaller frontage than what this
Roberson Woods doesn't, though.
Roberson Village does.
Yeah, Roberson Village does.
Woods does not. Roberson Woods does not. I agree. There is inconsistency in what we have out there already.
That was many years ago.
So, and as is drawn up here, there are no plans for any other entrances into this as there were with the previous petition. There's industrial to the north, which means it likely will not get something into that. Who knows what will happen further to the south and to the east. So, again, I think it's problematic that we had it in the previous one and we don't have it in this one. And that we've not asked the people who are responsible today for their opinion on the emergency access. We seem to be giving a lot of inconsistent information.
Any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
Yes. Motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a primary plat on South Indiana Street.
I'm in, sorry. I'm 100% in on that.
Okay.
So it's a Church's chicken, it'd be a little worse, but I like Church's chicken.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Jalapeno dipping sauce is so good.
Do you have multiples of this, or?
No.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And it's any size drawing, these small.
Okay.
It really isn't relevant to much of the discussion tonight, other than
Okay, all right, yeah.
Sometimes a snake.
Oh, this is the Kentucky Fried Chicken. Thank you. I'm John Larison. I'm with Holloway Engineering, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Phillips Edison. Phillips Edison is the company that owns and runs the Village Mooresville Station, our shopping center known as the Village. I'm good. We are here tonight to request approval for a one-lot addition to the minor plat. This lot will be known as Lot 4. It sits in that empty space between the McDonald's and the AutoZone. I believe they're currently maybe still selling mini barns in that area. And I believe there was at one time a car lot at this establishment. The goal now is to cut out this lot for sale to actually to a company to run a Kentucky Fried Chicken store. The lot is 0.898 acres in size. It fronts on Indiana Street, also fronts on an undeveloped alley that runs between the McDonald's real estate parcel and this subject parcel. Tech Review Committee, we were requested to obtain information concerning the utilities. This lot, again, has frontage on the 20-foot wide alley. There is sanitary sewer, gas, overhead electric and phone lines in that alley. They also front on Indiana Street, so other utilities would be available via Indiana Street. I have also provided Mr. Dieterlein with a previous land title survey that shows the complex nature of the utility situation in the Village Mooresville Station. And I presented that to you simply, again, to show you the complexity of the utility easements that run throughout the development, and also to point out that it appears that most, if not all of those utilities originate in that alley behind the McDonald's restaurant. You'll notice the multiple easements running south from that area for both water, sewer, and I believe it was Indianapolis Power and Light. So I hope that answers your question for the utility situation, and I'll be happy to answer any other questions.
Are you planning on, are they planning on developing this alley? Sorry, this is my house. mail, so our neighbors were asking me, what is this about?
Are you an interested party?
Well, I got this, and I wanted to ask you, Beth, because I got this in the mail at my house, and this is my house.
Yeah, so if you're an interested party, you need to recuse yourself.
I live on West South Street.
You can't ask any more questions, please.
You need to recuse.
I'm done? Okay.
Yeah, you can't participate in this at all.
Okay, that's why I asked.
Thank you.
Just in order to supply the board with that information, that alley, that 20-foot wide alley has always been there since Mr. Moore platted the fourth section in approximately 1860. You all know that it is undeveloped. It is a grass strip, but there have been utilities in that alley for at least the last 30 years that service all of those lots on the south side of South Street. I hope that helped you.
I think as discussed, ingress, egress will be off the street and via the parking lot area. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. After the meeting.
Ingress, egress will be off the street and as well as the parking lot area as far as exiting from that.
Ingress, egress will be both through that 40-foot wide part of Lot 3. Yeah. That is currently a drive, so we won't be requesting a new curb cut, but also through cross easements that govern the way parking and traffic is supposed to flow through the entire development.
Proper codes, fire protection, grease traps, everything.
That will be part of the site development plan.
Thank you.
We won't get to building without that.
Access to this lot will be through the part of Lot 3 that you noted on here. And do you anticipate that all the utilities will come from that alley to this directly and will not require anything from the existing plot?
No, I would assume that most will come from elsewhere in Lot 3, frankly. And that, again, was the purpose for showing you their past practices. Right. On the land title survey, they literally have easements running. There probably is almost as much property covered by easements as not on that land title survey.
So are there easements serving this parcel?
I'm sorry?
Are there easements serving this new lot?
I'm sorry, I still don't understand.
Okay. You said that the utilities come from the existing alley to most of this property.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are going to receive service from other easements in here through some way they're going to get from Lot 3 into Lot 4, what's Lot 4's new responsibility for any maintenance of those? How do they get their utilities if they do not get them from that alley? You understand? If, for example, there's a problem with the service to Lot 4 or Lot 3 decides to deny service to Lot 4, what prevents that from happening?
Well, there's already sanitary sewer lateral on the property. I think Mr. Bennett will substantiate that for me. There have been long-standing businesses on this lot in the past.
Okay.
Okay. There is an electrical utility in the alley, so they have a legal access.
Right.
By IPL through that alley.
Great.
To receive their electricity. I don't know because I have not prepared a site plan specifically for their building. I don't know that they will get their electrical service from that alley. Just like I don't know that they'll get it from Indiana Street or from Phillips Edison from elsewhere on Lot 3. But I do know that each of those utilities exist in all three of those instances. In the alley, in the street, and on Lot 3.
Is Lot 4 currently a part of Lot 3?
It is.
So when we split it out here, we will have two distinct lots, Lot 3 and Lot 4, correct?
They will.
And they'll have separate ownership, separate responsibilities.
Eventually, they will, yes.
And there is no provision for Lot 3 to provide utilities to Lot 4.
Each of the utilities that they're required and that will be required to run their operation are available elsewhere.
Okay. So I would anticipate...
I don't know how many other ways I
that's
need
okay.
to say that to
I
you.
agree, based upon what you provided, which is great, that they can get their utilities from the alley, and I would encourage them to do so, because I think it's problematic for them to take it from Lot 3, because if inevitably there is a problem with those utilities, there's no remedy.
Or have to cross easements for any utilities.
And there are cross easements throughout this development, and that's typical for an integrated type development where they share a parking lot, they share utility installations. Not unusual at all.
I wouldn't disagree, and we've done this at various other plazas, you might say, in the area, but I don't know of an instance where we've not required some writing that says, in the event of a problem or maintenance or anything else, this is how it gets resolved. To leave it silent, I think, creates a problem.
If I might, that, Ross Holloway, that would be outside of the approval of the minor plat. The ordinance requires that we show that the minor plat, in this case, the lot, can be serviced by utilities that are required for the development. They can. If, for some reason, there would have to be a utility brought in, for instance, from the west through the Edison property, then, and this is common for parking too, that's usually after the fact when the attorneys get involved and they start writing cross easements and the development plan gets approved by not only Kentucky Fried Chicken, but the Edison folks, and they say, well, we need electricity to come in from this direction. IPL's going to want an easement. So the attorneys all want an easement. So those things aren't usually done until the building is pretty well along and they know where those things are going to be. But I think the ordinance requires that we demonstrate that utilities are available to the lot, and they are in this case. Good point, though, but I'm sure that there's a very smart attorney somewhere in New York that's going to say, well, wait a minute, you need an easement to get to this lot if you're going to provide power across the Edison parcel.
I don't disagree that our requirement is that utilities are available, and they are available. I just want to make a comment that if they do not come from that alley and they do come from Lot 3, and you brought up parking, which I understood from my earlier discussions that the parking was going to be contained within Lot 4 and not be required in Lot 3, I think we are introducing an issue in the future, and it will probably become an issue in the future, but you are right that we have satisfied the primary requirement, and I hope they resolve it.
Other questions, comments from the board? The faintest ink is better than my fondest memory, so something probably should be put on the print as far as...
Well, they do have, I will agree, they do have access to the utilities to the north and to the east. I don't know if they're going to exercise that.
They have access to the utilities the same way you do at your homestead.
Absolutely.
And if it's coming from another direction, an atypical direction, not the street, a special easement would be written. I fail to understand the point, Mr. Dieterlein.
I just want to state that you've stated a couple of different things that I think will introduce problems in the future for them, but they have satisfied our requirements. And I'm not going to push the issue.
And I will state publicly that that's what these people do for a living. They run shopping centers. They have very smart attorneys that draft the reciprocal easements, parking, paving plans, et cetera. And as long as we take care of the minimum requirements for the plat, I think we should let them do their job. That's what I'm asking you tonight.
I don't want you to be under the opinion that I was going to say that we should deny this because it's not there.
I wasn't.
I just want to state that if they take, because we are splitting off Lot 4 from Lot 3, typically we have requested how they're going to get utilities, which you have provided. In the future, if they choose to get utilities from Lot 3, I would encourage them to have easements to do so, because I think they'll introduce problems. But it's just a comment.
And if they do
I'm not criticizing
get easement, and if they do get utilities from somewhere on Lot 3, I'm sure that they will ask me to write an easement for it. We don't know that at this point, but we do know that they have frontage on a public alley and a public street.
Right. I agree. We're not disagreeing. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Other questions or comments from the board? Anyone from the audience wish to speak? Summer? Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve this preliminary plat as presented.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Motion carries. Next one is a primary plat on East-North County Line Road, followed by another primary plat on East-North County Line Road.
Do you want this drawing back, or you want me to put it in the file? I can put it in the file if you'd like. That's fine.
I have handed out to you a copy of a minor plat. This is the property of Fred and Maggie Settle, longtime owners of the property in the 5300 block of East County Line Road. I've given you both a copy of the plat and contours.
When you get a chance, why don't you go ahead and sign
For the property. And would also like to hand out current zoning map, as well as a plat of the original Settle subdivision that lies on County Road. And the frontage of this 30-acre, two 30-acre parcels. 12. It is. This is 6 and 7. Thank you. Thank you. We didn't have other ones to sign yet, so on those other two. I do want to point out that this is the first of two minor plats. I will give you the plat for the second one next. This first one is 4 lots, and it's named Settles Overlook. You can see that we've divided roughly 22 acres into 4 lots, the smallest lot of which is 2.6 acres. We do plan to construct a private roadway for which we have roadway maintenance agreements. And I'll ask you to look at the Settles subdivision plat with me. This is a 1965 platted subdivision.
We don't have one here.
That's okay. We got it.
We did it when I was...
This is a 1965 subdivision. It was platted by, actually platted by Fred's father and named Settles Subdivision. This is a recorded, accepted, approved plat by the Morgan County Commissioners at the time. And we are accessing County Line Road through the 50-foot wide dedicated roadway known as Meadows Drive. We have had septic tests done for each of the lots. You can see that our density is 4 lots, 22 acres, so we have an average of approximately 5.5 acres per lot. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have concerning the plat.
So you've got maintenance agreements on the shared?
Yes, we do. You'll notice there are a few buildings that are in the way there in the access utilities, and all those are currently being removed or will be removed prior to the sale of properties.
You have not conducted perk tests yet, am I correct?
We have, yes, conducted perk tests.
I missed that, I'm sorry.
Yep. In fact, we tested all 8 lots. And I did add those primary septic easements and secondary septic easements as requested by the Tech Review Committee.
Everything will be on-site wastewater treatment, an individual well per lot, correct?
That's correct.
Is there a hydrant? Is there a hydrant at the county line and Meadows Drive, or close proximity?
At the entrance to the adjoining north subdivision.
Other questions, comments from the commission? So the maintenance agreement share and share alike, I haven't read it.
It is. That is, I believe, number 19 on page 2, under the Homeowners Association, Lot Owners Association.
Other questions or comments from the commissioners?
Okay, so these 4 lots would come off of Meadow Drive, existing Meadow Drive.
That is correct. There is a long-standing gravel drive through that roadway that both Lot 2 and 3, and then one more adjoining parcel south all use that currently.
Other questions from the commission before I ask for the public comments?
On Meadow Drive, it comes in there and it shows it runs right straight into a house. How is the drive gonna go in and around that house?
I think what you're looking at, yes, right there where the somewhat of a roundabout is, or cul-de-sac, those are all utility buildings, and they are in the process of being removed now. This here.
Yeah, those are being removed.
Where he's coming in?
Yes.
All of these are being removed.
Shed-type structures that Mr. Settle has used over the years in his personal business.
I'm going to go to the public now if there's no further questions from the board. Anyone from the public wish to speak, please state your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name's William Davis. I live at 5319 East County Line Road. I am in Lot 3 on Meadows Drive. As it shows on all of what you have here, it shows a 50-foot wide entrance. The actual houses that were built by Settles, I've lived in our house for 42 years. My neighbor lived in his house for 18 or so, and you know, if you take 50 feet from, and when we moved in, you know, I've got a sidewalk next to my house, and I've got a set of stairs that come out of the door right down to the sidewalk. The way it's shown to me right now, that I'm going to walk into the middle of the street. They're going to have to cut off half of they're going to take my sidewalk, cut off half of my concrete stairs that come out of my door, and then we're going to end up in the middle of the street. And I've got to, you know, and I don't see why that you need, and same as his lot. They're going to cut off half of his parking pad in his garage. So, I mean, these were built, my sidewalk and stairs were built when the house was built in the 60s. I truly think that, I'm not a lawyer, but I think they're grandfathered in, you know, since I've maintained them for 42 years. I wouldn't think you'd just be able to come and tear it out of there. Second issue I have is the piece of property directly behind us hasn't drained for 4 years. The culvert that takes care of the natural drainage for that area has been stopped up for about 7 years. Every time it rains, I've got a pump that I go out and pump in and take a hose and take it across supposedly Meadows Drive, which is 12 feet wide or so, not any wider than that. And it's only access for 3 houses, so, you know, we don't have any issue there. Now we're going to have 8 houses that's going to access or 7 that's going to access the property, so we're going to have some issues with a drive. The responsibility is Mr. Settles to have that culvert fixed is stopped up. But for 7 years, in the beginning, he said he was going to take care of it, but he's not taking care of it. So like I say, my backyard has a septic tank in it. When it rains, my septic doesn't work unless I pump all the water out from that field that's coming down to the edge of my property and supposed to take a culvert and go and leave the area. But my concern basically is, and I understand that the fact that, you know, the Settles have tried this before and couldn't get it done because he wanted it rezoned from agriculture to residential. Now I understand, since he's only got 4 lots on it, he doesn't have to, it's a minor plot, so he doesn't have to have the agricultural zoning taken off of it. You know, but my main concern is the fact that the road, you know, I'm sure at 50 feet is just going to disrupt the devil out of both of our houses. Now he has 2 other entrances. He's got a full another called Orchard Lane, which is down the road a little bit, and then he also has I don't know what lot it is, but there's an empty lot right there that's 100 feet wide.
Come here and show us, please.
This one.
You're talking lot 6. Lot 6.
I see the meadow.
Lot
the
6.
Orchard Lane.
Meadows Drive is right here, and that's
Yeah, there's 3. There's Orchard Lane.
Here's Orchard Lane over here, but one of these in here is an empty lot.
Lot 6. Lot 6 is empty.
6.
Oh, is it? Okay, so lot 6 is an empty lot, 100 feet wide. You know, I mean, there are other options for Ingress and Egress, I would imagine. But basically, I'm not real concerned the fact that there's going to be some high-end houses back there, you know, and which is going to help our property values. But my only concern is the fact that the road's going to be disrupted. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I have some questions. So you built, oh yeah, I'm still on.
I'm sorry.
You built on that lot knowing that you didn't have possession of that?
I didn't build on that lot. I bought that house.
Oh, and it was there?
Yes, it was built by Settles. It was built by Eugene, or his grandfather used to live in that house in back of me, and I used to have to do a lot of stuff for him, but it was built by his family. That house was built by his family in the 60s. That house was built there in the 60s, the same house. I bought my house in 1979. So we've been there 42 years.
So you knew that you didn't own that property that your sidewalk was on?
I wasn't aware of it, no.
You didn't have a surveyor or anything when you bought the property?
No, we just bought it from Max Kane, which was a lawyer, but doesn't mean anything. But we bought it off the Kanes. But what I'm trying to say is the fact that, no, the properties were built by the Settles family, and they were the ones that put the sidewalk inside the 50-foot easement, and they were the ones that put his driveway inside the 50-foot easement, so they didn't leave anything but about, a 12, 13-foot road. And it's been that way since the 60s. Any questions? Or whatever?
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Eric Oliver. I represent the Chapman family at 5441 East North County Line Road. And I won't go through most of our position because most of our position deals with the next primary plat, but I will point out a few things. That your residential subdivision ordinance, specifically on page 109, states that this expedited process shall not be used to circumvent the major residential subdivision process, which is one of the things that it seems Mr. Settle is trying to do, is to get around having to comply with more of the requirements by only doing 4 lots on this one and then 4 lots on the other. The other issue is there is no way possible that Meadows Drive can comply with the ordinance concerning roads in terms of the requirements, including sidewalk requirements that your uniform development ordinance requires. And like I said, I will reserve the rest of my presentation for the next plat. If anyone has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you again. Thank you. Next.
So I'm Shelby Peterball. I live at 5301 East North County Line. The property that you see is landlocked off of County Line Road itself. I only have access to my home via that gravel drive, which I think is of importance. So bear with me. I too have, like I said earlier, never done this, but I think there is several reasons I can give you in summary to say that we have reasonable doubt here to at least request a continuance to investigate this further. One being that the front of our property, while Settles Subdivision does create Meadows Drive currently, as you will see by the hard line at the end of it, does not extend into the gravel lane to my home. My address is on East County Line Road, and our property at the front aspect does have an easement in question at this point. So that definitely needs to be investigated, and I think I will need to have legal consult to make terms with that. The other thing I want to point out to you guys is that we started noticing changes around this property about 30 days ago. The first thing was a stake put in our property by the surveyor very clearly. I mean, we're talking 30 to 40 feet from where we were told our lines were. attempts were made to personally contact Mr. Settle to discuss just basically what was going on, and I was immediately met with aggression, met with the threat that if we pushed back on this, they would put pig farms in to decimate the property value that we have. We were also met with the threat of putting trailers in there if we opposed this. So there have been a couple attempts. We've at least had 2 private conversations to discuss the processions and, what part is going on here. And every time a personal conversation has been started, there is no proper conversation to be had. Again, leading me to tell you that I think at this time, while I have sought legal consult, I have not engaged a lawyer, and I think we need adequate time to be able to do that and address those concerns. They have since removed that stake, and in multiple trips out to the area to try to stake out the corner of our property where it backs up to the Settles property, it has been restaked. I was approached by one of your presenters of this property that they're trying to develop, and told that they didn't know our property line, but they would try not to trespass. So whether they're even confident in where they have put these lines is doubtable as well. We were offered, we purchased our home during the peak, who knows where we're at now, but during a high peak of the pandemic, a survey and much talk about the property lines that we had were discussed. They were not pursued. However, Mr. Settle provided us with a document that showed our property lines, met us as well as our realtor personally to show us where the lines were and what would be respected. The current marking where the corner of our property is at least 10 feet in one direction and 15 feet in another direction off of that. So, in summary, I think there is a lot here of this survey that should be in question, especially regarding around my property, my access to my property, and where they intend to put this road. My biggest request of you is to consider that as a private citizen, I have just as much right to my property as Mr. Settle, and I deserve the chance to seek legal consult to try to rectify this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you show me where you live on this?
10 feet, 50 feet difference.
So this is my home.
Okay, it's back in here.
Yes.
Okay.
Behind the 2 homes.
Right here.
That's where she is.
Thank you. It's right here.
I'm Billy Coker. I live at 5331 East North County Line Road. My concern is drainage. If that lot where they want to build behind there is high, it's going to come on us, go to our septic tanks, and because our wells are in front. Because there's a tremendous amount of water when it rains, and most of it goes in front of Bill's house and the field tile. But that's my main concern, the drainage and their septic tanks, where are they going to be, and where are the wells going to be, because we don't need any more water on us. Okay.
Thank you.
My name's Carl Sherby. I live right across from Bill. Basically, my same problem is with the drive. We're concerned about the width of that drive, taking out most of my driveway to where it eliminates what is presented when we bought the house. So therefore, cutting our property down by quite a bit. As long as the drive stays the same, it's something we can work with. But we just want to make sure that is one of the things that gets addressed. So that.
Your lot 2?
Lot 2.
1 and 2.
Yeah.
Oh, you're 1 and 2.
Yeah, I got a double lot right there. You got
He said they're 1 and 2.
So that's the original plat. This is the aerial, and you're saying that you are
these two lots.
These 2 lots here.
Yeah, so that line that you got there runs right through my driveway.
Yeah, like half of our driveway.
Yeah, 3 limits to it. So I could basically get a car.
The lady that was just
I didn't know if you
It's close.
We're here. Maybe she's here. Can you show me that he's concerned about?
Have you ever seen this document?
I just recently saw it, just like 3 days ago.
Okay.
It doesn't sound like you did any surveys when they developed.
If he's used that side.
I will not be able to
Just look at the house we built so close.
There's some just terrible.
I think there could be.
We've discussed it.
He's maintained that.
Not worried about this part. You're worried
It's a
about
job, right?
Thank you. Yeah, I like having my whole driveway too.
Okay. She said we can get into the Ingress and Egress. Over here.
You're speaking of the driveway. Can two cars go side by side?
No.
No, it's a single?
Right now. It's legally platted.
Yeah.
But they were.
The guy built homes that extended onto the right of way. Does he now have the right to damage the property? I don't think so. I mean, but that's
There are more
not
questions than
something I
answers
can
on this.
research right now.
I don't disagree with you at all. I don't disagree with you at all.
I'd just like to state that a lot of the water runoff wouldn't be a problem if the culvert behind our house was intact. That water, the field drains towards my lot, drains towards everybody's lot. The, 1, 2, well, not 1 and 2 basically, because they're not on the.
Well, it's my backyard.
Yeah, it's a backyard, and their septic's there. So it drains, to everything, to the left of me, to the east of me. And the field just constantly drains. Well, it can't drain because the culvert's been stopped up for years. I've tried to fix it, I can't fix it. So anyway, a lot of that issue would disappear because that, like I say, that field doesn't drain. Thank you.
So you think that when you purchased your home, it was misrepresented as far as where the property lines were?
Didn't buy it from, I wasn't misrepresented, but I wasn't actually told I was 25 years old. And at that time, didn't care, just give me a house.
Just to clarify, when you purchased your property, the things that you're mentioning were already existing?
Yes, absolutely.
So
everything was existing.
So
the sidewalk was there.
If they were encroaching upon this platted piece here, it was already there when you purchased it?
Correct. It was there when the house
was constructed since
that
time?
It was.
That's all I wanted.
Constructed when the house was built in 1967, 5. I don't know. Not sure when it was built, but
that's fine.
Yeah, it was all constructed and built. The sidewalk was built and the stairs were built at that time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm Shelby again.
Wait, I'm gonna let you come up one time, but I'm gonna let you, since you're there, but we can't get into the.
I apologize.
That's okay. Go on.
The note that I had was actually in response to information I learned tonight, which was that this question's about, is there a maintenance agreement for this, for the road that will go in there? I have access to this home. I have an easement to access my home that currently contracts me to help with upkeep should it arise. That's an agreement I made on a gravel lane, right? I feel like if this is something where this becomes a developed road, A, how am I going to access my home during that development? But B, I have not signed nor agreed to any proposal of maintenance upkeep of that. I know I can't put a tree in an easement. I can't develop an easement. I can't do things with it. Why should the Settles have that opportunity?
Thank you. I'm going to let the presenter answer questions, but there's this another young lady that wants to speak.
Okay. Did you want me to?
Did you want to speak?
No, that's not my property.
Okay.
We're at the other end. We're the other end.
So,
Yeah,
Does anyone,
Is there anybody else? Yeah.
Okay, we're ready.
Is there anybody else that wants to?
I don't, anybody else want to
All
speak?
set on that? Okay.
Oh, there is a young lady. She's coming.
It's probably be easier for the petitioner to answer all the questions at once.
Yes.
and you may be able to answer my question. Susan Haynes, 13434 Northwestern Road. I am on the south side adjacent to what would be Settles Overlook Lot 4 and Wenmore Ridge Lot 3. The north side of my property, south side of this property would be in the floodplain. You may have access to documentation as far as what can or can be built and where the floodplain resides in that area. Some of the information which I have heard about septic systems backing up and draining down into that field, which drains down into my creek, concern me. So I am curious about and want to make sure that you have done whatever needs to be done to study that floodplain area, or if there is a floodplain study, I am curious as to when that occurred, because this creek is obviously affected by all of the Heartland subdivision as well as all of the other Northern Madison Township subdivisions, and I can tell you that it has flooded quite frequently up into their fields as well as on my side of the property line. So I just want to make sure that we are following everything we need to do as far as that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay, I will take those in reverse order. Yes, we have consulted FEMA's website. We are aware of any floodplain issues, and there are no floodplain issues on this property per FEMA's maps.
Please.
FEMA's website is the authority. It's where we go to decide whether or not we pay flood insurance, whether a home can be built on the property, and there is no floodplain on this property, per the authorities. Mr. Davis, I believe, lives on Lot 3, and he did bring up a couple of really good issues. First of all, the roadway only being 12 to 13 feet wide in one portion of the roadway, we're going to widen that. Not only are we going to widen it, but we're going to widen it in the most friendly way with the neighbors that we possibly can. There are improvements built out into the platted roadway. We're not here to contest that. We're not interested in those improvements in any way. In fact, we're going to build our 16-foot wide improved paved roadway in the most agreeable route, and we won't be a foot to 2 feet closer to anything on either one of those lots than we are now. There's plenty of room for a 30-foot wide roadway if we wanted to build one.
So it will not encroach on the sidewalk there?
Absolutely not. It won't be within a foot to 2 feet closer than it is now. I mean, it's just not an issue. We're not interested in pushing the point in any way, shape, or form that these folks or their predecessor have built improvements in the roadway. That's not in our interest at all. Nobody's improvements will be removed. We won't be any nearer anyone's improvements than we are now, with the exception of possibly 1 to 2 feet. We can widen that roadway in its current location and make it 16 feet wide total and not encroach onto any private area, whether it is a pull-off or driveway or
parking lot,
anything in that area. I hope that you've all been out there to see this existing gravel drive. It varies in width. At the entrance to the roadway, it's about between 18 and 19 feet wide. Continue another 30 to 40 feet, it's 17 feet wide, and then it hits a narrowing point. On the east side of the roadway at that point, there's a head wall. we'll widen in the other direction at that point. We're not,
Please.
we'll widen in the other direction at that point, to be good neighbors. We have no interest in harming what is in the roadway in any way at all. And we're paving a gravel drive. We're not asking for the neighborhood to kick in any way. They're going to have the advantage of having a newly paved roadway that will not interfere with their property any more than this gravel drive does currently. Okay, Mr. Davis also mentioned a drainage problem, and there certainly is a drainage problem. There's a crushed pipe under this roadway. I believe that somebody from the audience said that was Mr. Settle's responsibility to fix it. Absolutely not his responsibility to fix it, any more than it's one of their responsibilities to fix it. But he's going to fix it. He's going to install a new drainage pipe so that the drainage problem that Mr. Davis currently has, he's got a pump sitting in a partial swale to pump water. We're going to improve the swale, Mr. Davis. We've left a drainage easement on the plat in order to do so. We're going to do that at our cost. No cost to anyone else for the pavement, for the drainage pipe, for the labor, or for the pavement.
Can I say something?
Sure.
You said,
Come up here, please, so everyone can
you
hear.
said, and that's all well and good. Everything you're saying so far, I'm kind of cool with.
Yeah. Well, he's doing this, and he wants to do it in a friendly way with the neighborhood.
Sure, but
he has a
the
commitment
point that
to
you're getting at is that this isn't Mr. Settle's responsibility. His family was the one who built the road, and they were the one who had to put in the culvert to start with. And then, so it has to be his responsibility since that's his property. Well, all we have is an easement. He owns the land.
Okay, technically though, that is not the case. It is a dedicated roadway. It's a public roadway. It was approved by the county, accepted by the county per plat. So technically it's not his responsibility, but he's going to take responsibility. He's going to put in a new drainage pipe to solve this, what has to be a, 15, 20-year problem, I would guess.
It's only been 7 years or so, because what happened, it developed a hole in it, and his workers thought the way to fix that hole was just to keep shoving gravel down it. And then he until one of them decided to put a cap over the top of it before they put the gravel. So it's completely full of rock.
We're kind of getting off topic here.
We're getting into a debate here.
Okay, that problem will be solved by drainage swale. We have dedicated a 20-foot wide strip off the north end of the property to not only replace that pipe, but also to improve that swale, because it could use to be just a little deeper, I think.
Absolutely can, yep.
And that is part of our plan as well. The other lady stated that that we are going through her private access easement, and that there had been issues concerning a property line. If we got over onto somebody's property, we definitely apologize for that. And I've done it myself before. However, she does have an access and utility easement. She has every right to continue to use that access and utility easement. And in fact, she's going to have a paved roadway where she used to have a gravel drive. So, again, totally at Mr. Settle's expense. We talked about drainage. There are a few areas that historically, for the last 10,000 years, the property has drained the way it does currently. It's also been a row crop situation, which is the absolute worst possible situation for drainage. The only surface that drains worse than a cornfield is a roadway. So we will be selling lots. There will be improved yards. The installation of a grass sod and planting of grass is actually going to improve the drainage seriously in this area. So we've come to you with minor plats many times over the last 20 years and talked with you about runoff curve numbers. But I'll just tell you the runoff curve number for a sodded yard is a lot lower than either a roadway or a row crop field. If you have any questions,
I have one. Is 16 foot wide enough for 2 cars to pass?
It is. I drive a Highlander. It's 7.2 feet wide. So, yeah, I think 16 feet will do it. It's minimal, but that's only at one crucial point where there's really an issue for 2 cars to pass. Yeah, and a stone shoulder as well, probably a 2-foot stone shoulder on either side of the roadway, so.
So can I ask you a couple questions based on what you said? Even though there's a 50-foot wide dedicated right-of-way here, according to this, are you committing then to only increasing that to a 16-foot wide paved area with 2-foot shoulders, as you just stated there? Are you making that commitment? Even though,
absolutely.
And it would stay within that 50-foot with...
Yes, and we really have, again, I hope that you've all been out to see it. It's a very wide corridor, and 50 feet, we're going to, even if we have a utility installation, we probably would need 24. So in the end, the roadway is not going to be, any closer to the improvements noticeably than they are now.
I also heard you say something about replacing the culvert that's there with a new culvert. Are you willing to commit to that as a part of this approval?
Yes, he already has.
And maintaining it in addition to that afterwards?
Absolutely.
Is there, and then finally, you mentioned something about a 20-foot wide drainage easement on the property. I don't see that on here. Where is that?
That actually is on the next plat, and Mr. Davis's lot backs up to lot number 1 and one more ridge. And there is an existing swale there to take care of this problem. It's just a little bit underdeveloped, and again, the swale leads to a pipe that is crushed and full of stone.
Okay. So that would be part of your next presentation?
Yes, the issue of that easement, yes.
Okay, and we can wait on that. So this one, there's no drainage improvement because, I don't know how far away we are, but we're considerably farther away than 200 feet away is the closest to these homes, except for that easement that we're talking about. Okay. And the drainage pipe goes in that easement area. Is that what I understand?
Well, that drainage pipe actually is within the 50-foot wide easement and Meadows Drive.
It's part of the drive.
It is part of the drive.
Okay.
It's under the drive.
That's fine. So those two commitments you're willing to make?
Absolutely.
16-foot and then the replacement of the current drainage pipe that's there. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Can you move the easement? So you're not cutting off anybody's driveway or sidewalk? Because the 6 looks empty. And there looks like a lot more room between 5 or 6 or 6 and 7.
Well, that actually is an existing roadway, and we'd like to utilize that legally existing roadway and drive.
Not
for these 4 lots, it's very convenient. We feel like we're making substantial upgrades for the neighborhood at Mr. Settle's expense in both drainage and pavement. And
But they're saying they're gonna lose their driveway and their sidewalk.
that's just not the case. Not at all. I hope you've been out and seen the property, but
They went 50 feet.
So if they used all 50, it would encroach. But if they stay at the 16 and 18 or under 20, then you guys are good.
Yes.
Okay.
but just to make the distinction,
I got you, okay.
the legal status of the land is different from, I mean, there's a platted street, and that's a legal issue. And then there's gravel or asphalt on the road that we call a roadway. And we're going to improve the roadway significantly in several ways, but we're not going to use all of the area that's dedicated to the street because that would damage the neighbors, and we're not interested in doing that.
Right.
Even though they do possibly have very minor improvements, I think maybe a sidewalk, we're not going over there. Where's your property?
Can I ask one question that was brought up that I don't think you addressed? The other young lady spoke of her gravel driveway, and she said that she has an easement that requires her to maintain.
Yes, if I can show you specifically, that is this property, that is the Peterball property. And it accesses County Line Road through both Meadows Drive and a second 50-foot wide access and utility easement. Actually, it's termed an Ingress Egress easement that is 50 feet wide off the east side of her property and 50 feet wide off the south side of her property.
So do you show that on this drawing?
Yes, it is.
Is that
Can you see it?
Is that what I see here that's listed as instrument 2020-07685? Is that what you're representing?
And you'll notice that our easement for the continuation of that roadway is coincident with that 50-foot wide easement.
And I may be misstating what she said. I don't think she was concerned that property was going to be taken from her, that she was now going to be responsible for maintaining.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make clear, I didn't imagine you were going to do that, so.
Absolutely not. In fact, once again, the neighbors will not be inconvenienced in any way with having to share in the expense of the maintenance of this roadway. The upgrade to pavement is free.
What about maintaining it?
The maintenance of this roadway is strictly the responsibility of Lot 1, 2, 3, and 4. We haven't asked the neighbors to participate. Frankly, our surveyors were met with hostility when they went out to the property, and we got a very clear message that they were not interested in speaking with us, so we did not ask.
So
Let's not get into the debate here. Let's try to get something
So on your representation here, where do lots 1, 2, 3, and 4 begin their covenant requirements to maintain the roadway? Does it start at the end of Meadows Drive, or does it start at the end of this existing easement?
It will only start at the end, the south end of Meadows Drive, yes.
So how will that coincide?
What do you think about that? All the way to County Line, yes, all the way to County Line Road. The maintenance responsibility will go all the way to County Line Road.
For the new lot owners.
For the new lot owners.
And the language can be changed to address that, make it more clear.
Well, it seems like we have an easement I'm just trying to better understand, because this is really difficult to understand what's going on here. So the Meadows Drive portion of this, where that is not an easement, and the current easement that the homeowner has right now only goes across their property and does not include what goes through Meadows Drive, is that correct?
No, because it is a public roadway.
Right.
It is a dedicated roadway. She does not need an easement through that.
Right, but her maintenance of that is not required either. I don't believe there's anything in her, I don't have it, but I'm assuming that her easement and the maintenance of what's going on there does not address that, because it only addresses what's in the easement, not what's in the public right-of-way.
No, any agreement or responsibility for Ms. Peterball to maintain her driveway, it's no different than anyone else maintaining their driveway.
Right.
It just happens to be, half of it happens to be in an access and utility easement that is private. The other half of it is in a public right-of-way that's Meadows Drive.
But what I hear you saying is that you're going to extend lots 1, 2, 3, and 4's responsibilities in this easement all the way to County Line Road. Does that mean that she will no longer be responsible for maintaining anything on that roadway?
That's exactly what we've stated.
Okay, so
that is exactly what we've stated.
So basically what you're saying is she will no longer have any responsibility to maintain the roadway.
That is exactly what the language says.
You understand?
That lots 1, 2, 3, and 4 are responsible for the maintenance of the roadway. We have not brought Ms. Peterball into this plat or any responsibility whatsoever.
I guess legally, can they do that? Can they say, well, we're going to take care of all of it, even if her document says you're still responsible for it? How do those two things?
It would void it, because presumably their new agreement would say any prior agreements void any.
Okay, so that would need to be added to this.
Or made in the motion?
Or made in the motion to add, I guess, technically. I mean, they've given us 20 different requirements here.
Not if that's just an additional commitment that's being made.
There's some confusion here, I think, and maybe it's me, I don't know. But, so, the right-of-way is dedicated to the public. It belongs to Morgan County, period, end of story.
Right.
It's unimproved by the county, which makes it sort of a little bit of a different animal.
Right.
So any improvements within that right-of-way, whether it's their sidewalk, driveway, it doesn't matter. It still belongs to Morgan County.
Right.
Yes. It still belongs to Morgan County, but the maintenance of those items, regardless of what they might be, is responsibility of either the adjoining landowner or whoever put them there, or whoever in God's name wants to maintain them. It doesn't matter, because the county owns them. So we, Mr. Suttles, really, I don't have deep enough pockets, he can commit, I think through this plat, to maintain a roadway all the way from his property to Hendricks County Road, because the county isn't going to maintain it. The county hasn't done the improvements, and the Peterballs, their private easement is not infringed, because their private easement terminates at the south end of the dedicated right-of-way for the street.
Right.
So as long as we are not infringing on their right to use that easement for its intended purpose, which in this case was ingress and egress, and I assume utilities, for that portion outside of the public right-of-way, then in fact, I don't think they need to be incorporated into any kind of agreement, as long as the agreement is clear enough through this planning process that Mr. Suttles is responsible and his lot owners for maintaining it all the way to County Line Road in fact, its existing condition. Now, what might take place, and I don't want to really muddy the waters here, is that there might be a short stretch of her driveway from where Mr. Suttles' roadway is to where her actual property is. That would still be hers to maintain. But the 16 feet of asphalt with the stone shoulders we're talking about tonight, Mr. Suttle's owners, whoever he sells to, will have to maintain it, and it'll be from wherever we say it starts to wherever it terminates, and they just get a free driveway.
I don't disagree with anything that you just said. I think that's fine. As the only thing that, and I would agree with everything you said. I think that what our attorney said is probably appropriate, that you note that any other agreements that involve that easement
And we can do that.
are void.
Null and void.
Of maintenance, of the maintenance, not anything else.
No, I still want her to have access.
Still access and all that stuff is
Just
fine,
don't
but just the maintenance, so that she is protected from any, from these 4 lot owners coming to her and saying, you have a portion of this.
And that's
that
what I
are
said
resolved.
earlier, that I think the language needs to be massaged some to make some of those things.
What you have as part of, basically part of 19 in here.
What do you propose is the best way to do that? Is there language in here that needs to be amended, or are these commitments that you make that attach to and are recorded with a primary plat?
Since this is a minor plat, it would be through the covenants and restrictions part of
Number 19 that they have listed there.
which
Okay,
we
so
would
this
have
needs to be amended?
Yeah, and we would run that by you and massage the language however you want us to
Well,
massage it.
it would also, we would need to include the 16-foot commitment
Yes.
on the pavement,
We can do
2-foot
that.
shoulders.
And the shoulders, stone
And we
shoulders.
can do that.
Yeah.
So because this is a minor plat, it's sort of secondary and final in one meeting. And because of that, it's really hard to do anything afterwards other than adjust the covenants and restrictions to incorporate those things that are part of any motion here tonight, or it really wouldn't even have to be a motion because we're committing to do it.
You got that, John?
I just would prefer not to have them, they can vote on it, but I don't want them to sign it until we make.
Absolutely. No, we wouldn't require.
We always bring it by.
Make it contingent.
Yeah. Well, what we would do typically is they don't sign it until we've submitted it and the language is in there to your satisfaction, and then they sign it. And if it's not there, they don't sign it.
Mr. Oliver would like to speak again.
Well, Mrs. Haynes was next.
I'm sorry. She's been waiting. He's just waving at me.
I just wanted to say something regarding the floodplain. Again, I'm the one who, it flows south and downhill toward me. And I understand, one of the questions that I had was the date of the flood study. Because if you look at this area, which is obviously very close to Hendricks and Marion counties, the creek that flows across my property and their property comes from Decatur Township. And somehow FEMA has designated a floodplain that mysteriously ends at the county line. I believe, and as I said, this has flooded twice in the last 15 years. I've seen it with my own eyes. So I believe that this creek is in a floodplain, and I'm sorry if someone has screwed up their maps, but I don't think it just mysteriously at the county line stops being a creek and stops being a floodplain area.
So my comment to you on that would be, that is outside of the authority of this board, but not outside the authority of the Indiana Department of Homeland Security. If you believe that there has been
an error,
if there's a problem with the map, then that would be the agency that you would call to ensure that it is accurately reflected on the website. And there are, if it is in fact in a floodplain, there are very special permits that have to be obtained in order to build. So it would be, it has to be elevated, or, oh gosh, what is that sod called that people bring in? There has, yeah, it has to, everything has to be elevated.
How prompt would they be in responding to her?
They get very serious about development in a floodway. The Department of Homeland Security doesn't mess around with it. They have specific people dedicated to it, so I would.
Okay. And that was my concern, because it's
Don't go
been
to
done
FEMA,
more
go to the state.
recently. It's been done more recently in Marion County and Decatur Township, and therefore I believe ours is frankly outdated.
Yeah, this board just can't do anything about how it is actually, how it appears on that map. That's a state, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
You understand the remedy?
I understand that I need to call the Department of Homeland Security.
If they build without a permit, it's catastrophic dollars. So it's a serious game.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Like I said, it has flooded. I didn't know to take pictures at the time, but maybe next time I will.
You still want to speak?
If I could, just to shed some light on that last statement. We had a serious flood in 2008, very serious flood. The flood maps have been thoroughly updated, and this flood map is 2014 data. So before that, we probably went 30 years without an update, but we have had an update recently, for your information.
It would be our request as to Meadows Drive that Mr. Larison has stated that this is a public access, a public road, and it should comply with all public road requirements and not just a private drive. As he has said, this belongs to Morgan County. It should be treated as a public road, which would be our position as well, that it would potentially require sidewalks to comply with the Mooresville ordinance as well. And we don't believe that Meadows Drive, in the condition that it's in, and with what he wants, he can actually comply with the Mooresville ordinance, including as this being a public road, at least from County Line Road until the end of Settle Subdivision. He would need to comply with the road requirements. And it would be our request that any commitment would require either him to completely comply with the ordinance for those issues, including as a public road and not a private drive, and a requirement for sidewalks, which we don't believe he can actually accomplish based on his primary plat.
Thank you.
Can I address that?
Yeah, so I can't pull up the ordinance. What does the ordinance say?
Believe me. So, we're operating under the minor plating ordinance and the minor plating section of the UDO, and it says, the minor residential subdivision shall utilize a private means of access. The construction standards for shared driveways, shared private streets, and other improvements are at the discretion of the administrator within the town limits and at the discretion of the county engineer within the area of extended jurisdiction. I can guarantee you the county engineer doesn't give a whip about this. It is not improved. It has never been improved, and the county would not require it to be improved, because if it's improved, we're going to ask them to take maintenance for it. So it's not going to happen. It's never happened before in the jurisdiction of this planning commission, nor Morgan County for that matter, and they operate under something similar.
What page are you on there?
That's on page 109.
Thank you.
Mike? Mike?
Sorry. I'm getting this a little out of order, but I want to try to remedy everything here tonight.
Good evening. My name is Tammy Dorman. I'm actually Miss Pewterbaugh's realtor. I helped them buy the property about a year ago. And I believe their concern is not improvements at all. At this point, my concern for them would be the value of their title policy if amendments on an easement are going to be changed.
No.
And if they could possibly have time to research that with the title company.
It won't have any impact on the title, because the easement is still there. And the title will not address any issues of it, usually they don't, of improvements within that easement. It's access and utility. The title company will only be concerned if there is access, and there will be, because the underlying easement has not changed. It is still there.
Where is it?
So it's not an exclusive.
And no change to the way the verbiage of their easement is contained in their title policy,
Well,
even though the changes that you're saying you're going to make.
That is way beyond the scope of what we're doing.
I'm still having a hard time understanding how a property owner can be responsible for maintenance of an easement. In all the development that I've seen in 15 years, I've never seen that. So that's why I wanted them to commit to that almost, what's the word I'm looking for? Superfluously, because I don't actually even believe that she has responsibility to maintain that. I think I've seen, do you have it with you? Do you have the easement? Any chance you brought it? Because I see access and utility, right? We want to give you access to the property, but your responsibility to maintain it, that's just incredibly uncommon.
It's not
Because if it truly is just an access and utility, nothing is changing. They're just putting concrete over gravel. Okay. It's titled Ingress, Egress.
Any questions or comments from the planning commission?
Can I just clarify the last, ma'am, who last spoke? Are you still requesting a continuance, or are you satisfied with the answer?
We would, not to stop progress, but would love the opportunity just to do research to make sure that their parcel would maintain its same value and have no, that it wouldn't be impacted by these changes.
I just wanted to understand what you were asking for. Thank you.
We would be opposed to any continuance. We think that
What's
it's
the UDO you
been
cited?
adequately discussed here, and the title policy, I would bet my life, doesn't say anything about maintenance of an ingress and egress easement. And the underlying easement does not go away or change in any way, shape, or form.
What was the UDO number that you cited?
As to the requirements for the road.
For sidewalks? The need of sidewalks in a minor subdivision?
No, I don't think so.
I know, I'm reading yours. I'm curious what he read. I'm going to read them both, because that's my job.
I mean, it's my position that page 119 and 120 applies in terms of, here's our position is Mr.
Come up, please.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to.
Our position is Holloway is arguing that this is a public road to get access to this, but then wants to argue that the public road rules do not apply, and some of the minor subdivision rules do not apply. So he can't have his cake and eat it too. He can't say County Line Road to the end of Settles is a public road, but we don't have to do anything to make it an actual public road. We don't have to comply with it. He can't have his cake and eat it too. He can't say, well, we can use it to access our property, but we don't have to do anything with it. And that's our position, is any commitments, any requirements should make it completely comply with the road requirements of a public road, including within a subdivision.
So is your client asking them to widen it to 50 feet?
I'm saying he can't do it under the rules because he's going to encroach on these property owners. And I mean, this is the same issue that they're having, is this notice was received 10 days ago from today. And so for them, they get this mailing, or if they sign it on the same day my client did, was on August 3rd, 10 days before this hearing, which also included a notice that said you had to submit, if you wanted it to be considered to the Plan Commission, you need to submit comments 10 days in advance, is what he had said in his notice. And so all these things that they are making commitments to, we want them in the actual commitment, is what we want. And that's the requirement. We don't believe that that commitment can actually happen, because the way he has this way this is developed, he cannot comply with the ordinance. And that's our position of why this primary plat should be denied, is because it cannot comply with the ordinance, which is what your analysis has to be under a primary plat, which they've cited in the previous hearings. If it can comply, you have to approve it. If it can't, you can't approve it.
You made a comment there about they had to present their comments within 10 days. I don't think there's anything like that.
There is nothing that statutorily requires, but that's the notice that they provided.
No, I don't.
I have a copy of it. An audience member provided it to me.
We've already discussed that. His client has due process. They received it 10 days in advance, and they're here to speak. That issue, I don't believe, is worth any more discussion. I'm still trying to figure out this. So
if you look at the minor subdivision
I understand. So my question to you is, do you care whether it's a public right-of-way or a private drive, or are you just arguing that it has to be, because he said it's a public, then he should follow this? If he stood up and said, no, it's a private drive, then we can go back to the other.
We're using any argument that we have that we don't believe this is the appropriate, and it's a primary plat that has not met your ordinance. So we would argue in the alternative that if he's arguing that's a public road, he's got to comply with the public road. We're going to make arguments later as to the next subdivision that have different arguments.
Yeah,
and so,
let's
and
not
that's
go
the
there.
problem, is this is, because it's our position, he's trying to get around essentially the major subdivision rules. we're having to argue this in two separate hearings when these are really so interconnected that you can't argue it in two separate hearings.
If I might address that one more time. There's a misnomer that just because it's a public right-of-way means that it should be a public street. Well, it's not a public street, pavement and all that, until a public entity accepts it, i.e., in this case, it would be Morgan County. Beyond that, it's just a piece of right-of-way that the county owns or has jurisdiction on. That's it. In fact, when it comes to the vacation statutes, it treats an improved street, improved being improved by the public, versus an unimproved right-of-way. The vacation process is a little bit different because the public would have more rights into an improved street than they would an unimproved right-of-way. So the argument here is that it is a piece of ground unimproved and that it will be owned and operated by the county. If we were required to put in a street per the major subdivision requirements, it would be 26 feet plus 2-foot curb and gutter plus sidewalks. We would be taking near the entire right-of-way of 50 feet wide. We would be encroaching on these folks, fine folks, sidewalks, whatever, and we would be entitled to do that because it is a public right-of-way. We don't want to go there, we don't want to do that, and the ordinance doesn't require that, and I'm sitting down.
Comments from the Planning Commission?
That's what he's signing.
I would really like to hear the next one, how these are going. Okay?
Yeah.
I would really like to hear the next one, and see how these are, before we do anything. Because, is that possible, or do we?
Is there anything on the next presentation of the other minor plat going to answer some questions here and help us?
I don't believe so. It's got similar issues, but they're independent because, and I'll address that right now because I know it's going to come up, these two parcels are parcels of record and have been for many, many years. So it's not like we are reconfiguring something to get around the major plating ordinance. These parcels have existed as they are divided.
As minor plats?
No, not as minor plats. I'm saying the parent parcel have existed for many years. So under your ordinance, each one is eligible for minor plating.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the Planning Commission?
The only comment that I'll make is that the petitioner has said that they would prefer not to have a continuance. We've had numerous remonstrators who have said they would like a continuance for more time to investigate the legal and issues related to this. And I think that's what we need to decide is, do we feel comfortable enough moving forward with it, or do we want to continue it in light of what you were just talking about? So I think that's our decision.
Well, I guess both parties have, can request a continuance, or, and we would vote on that.
Was the question answered about her property value or?
About the title question?
Yeah.
No.
I don't know. They don't know.
I don't know.
No.
No, I'm not talking about that. I don't know that a remonstrator has the right
To ask for
a continuance.
Oh.
I don't know that they have standing to do that. I think this board can do that, and I think that the petitioner can do that, but I don't, their objective is to remonstrate.
They had notice of the meeting.
Yeah, they have satisfied. I just want to be cautious that you wouldn't be requesting, you wouldn't be approving a remonstrator's request to continue, because I don't believe there is such a legal right to do so.
Fair enough.
I'm looking back in history, and I think that did happen one time, so that's the only reason I mentioned it, so I'm sorry.
But it's the board's, or the commission's decision, not, you're saying that the petitioner has standing to ask for it, and...
Certainly,
and then we
it
can,
would go through the zoning
we can choose to
petition.
grant it or not.
Yes.
And the commission can choose to do that.
To table.
To table it,
Yes.
or to approve it, or to deny it.
Yes.
Those
you
are our
could-
three choices, right?
Yes.
And we do have another minor plat following this one now.
And this only affects this one at the moment.
And on this one, I have major concerns about the floodplain question. Awfully funny that a floodplain ends at a county line road. I think we should look into that.
Yeah, but we can't look into that, because
She's
that's a state issue.
She's going to look into
And even if it is a floodplain, and she proves that it is a floodplain, that affects his development, not whether you approve a plat. The plat stays the same. How he builds it would have to change.
They'd have to elevate.
He'd have a lot of requirements he would have to satisfy, and the state would oversee all of that.
I think in the essence of time, we need to have a motion of some sort, either to a continuance or a motion to vote from the commission.
Well, motion to continue.
Pardon?
Motion to continue.
We have a motion to continue on the table. Do we have a second? Do we have another motion?
That one died.
Make a motion, we approve the request for minor plat considerations.
Can we ensure that the three commitments,
Yeah, get those down in the motion.
do you know the three commitments, sir? So we can,
Yes.
with the,
Including the commitments that were made to be so approved and signed prior to final signature by the representatives on the planning commission.
Second.
We had a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries.
6,
Carries.
Pardon?
6.
Yeah, he took most of that.
How many we got?
Five.
No, it carries.
Tammy, Josh.
I figured they'd never meet the motion.
Well, and the next was going to be the exact same as she did.
Next item on the agenda is the second minor plat.
I misspoke a while ago. We did slightly reconfigure those lots, but they weren't material. In other words, it was the lots.
What are we talking about?
Well, Ross made the statement that these are both parcels of record, and we did not reconfigure them. And in fact, they are parcels of record, and they have been for at least 30 years, and we did slightly reconfigure one of the lines. Doesn't change the standing. These are parcels of record, able to be minor platted through your minor plat. No different than what we did with the Allison subdivision.
In fact, it's the same thing.
Absolutely same thing.
Were you here for that, Beth?
I don't know.
It gets into the weeds, but it doesn't really matter.
I was there for
What would you have had to, procedurally, what would you have had to have done to make it a major?
If what now?
Well, we would have, in fact, we would have had to combine the legal
Parcels.
description
Right. For
into
both.
one parcel and then subdivide it.
Right.
It has been two parcels for, I'll let Mr. Sutton
How long have they been?
Well, we're outside I don't know that we've
Yeah.
even opened this up yet,
let's
but
go.
I think that's going to come up.
Okay, I'll get to this quickly. This is the second of the two minor plats.
Here you go, give that to somebody else, I know what you're talking about.
It is slightly smaller,
I drive by it every day.
but again, it is 4-lot subdivision. Minor plat. We actually have 2 entrances for these 4 lots. One of the entrances is off of a 50-foot wide platted and accepted street, accepted by the county in 1965 when the original settled subdivision was platted, and that is known as Orchard Lane. Mr. Settle also owns lot number 6 in Settle subdivision. 3 of the lots 1, 2, and 3, will utilize an entrance running through lot 6. Lot number 4 will utilize an entrance running through Orchard Lane. Again, these are nice big lots. They meet your minimum. In most cases, more than double your minimum of 2 acres. No rezone is necessary, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
That's dedicated right now. Is that a street?
This is a street here. This is a street.
You're adding a street in lot 6, correct?
6 is going to now be a street?
Lot 6, we're going to establish an access and utility easement for a private,
no street.
For a private drive. Bespoke.
That was a little confusing.
Our thinking, there are a couple of reasons for handling this the way we have. First, Mr. Settle has owned lot 6 for how many years? 25. Those lots are really marginal. Just for your information, those lots, again, they were platted in 65. They're half an acre in size. They're utilizing septic fields and wells. And in 1965, that was fairly commonplace. It really isn't anymore. Lot 6 really is, if it were going to be built on, it would probably require, with today's standards, would probably require a sewer for sanitary sewer services. So he has owned it for many years, and he would like to utilize that lot as a private driveway. And our goal in having 2 roadways, obviously there's an increased cost, but there's a specific goal for that in the way the property lays, and also a wooded section that we're very interested in preserving. We do not want to run the roadway through an approximate 5 to 6 acre wooded portion of the property. Most of it is in a plowed bean field. We feel like the wooded portion of the property is the most valuable part, and establishing our drives in the way we have saves us from having to run a roadway and the destruction through the woods. Just FYI. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioners, questions?
You have the primary and secondary septic on lot 2?
Yes, it's just south of the north line. It's actually...
Oh, I see it now, okay. I see where, I couldn't see it at first. Okay, thank you. It's adjacent to the 20-foot DUE.
It is.
other questions before I ask the public to speak?
I'll say good evening again, as if I wasn't just up here, but my name's Eric Oliver, I represent Michelle Chapman at 5441 East North County Line Road, Canby, Indiana, and I do not have quite enough of our packets for you, but I do have 8 of the packets. It is my client's position that this primary plat must be denied. First reason is pursuant to the zoning ordinance, this development does not fit the plan concerning agriculture. Specifically, I mean, obviously this is going to convert agricultural land as Mr. Larison testified in the previous hearing, and this is actually zoned as agricultural, so that would be the first issue. The second issue is, it is our position, if you look at Exhibit 4, and you look at the map for settled subdivision, and you look at Exhibit, they are attempting to use Lot 6, and they are attempting for you to grant access to Lots 1, 2, and 3 on this Winmore Ridge through Lot 6. Lot 6 is a separate subdivision, and while Mr. Settle does own Lot 6, Mr. Settle still has to comply with the covenants under Settle subdivision. The covenants under Settle subdivision require that this property be for residential lot only, and he is now attempting to convert that into a, we'll use his term, a private drive. And so he would be in violation of the covenants of a separate subdivision. He would be asking you to grant permission to essentially violate another subdivision, which we don't believe you have the authority to do. And thus, if you do not have the authority to do so, he does not have access to lots 1, 2, or 3 in his proposed Winmore Ridge minor plat. Because he has, if you note, he has lot 1, 2, and 3 access through this ingress, egress, or private access. Well, he cannot do that as a result of that being a separate subdivision, which covenants require that to be a residential. It is also my client's position that Orchard Lane, that essentially it has been abandoned by the county as they've never done anything in the almost 60 years that this road has, this public benefit has been there. The previous landowners from, I believe, the 1960s actually placed property that is on what is now Orchard Lane. My clients did not realize there was an Orchard Lane. We don't dispute that Orchard Lane was platted in the subdivision plat for Settles, but they did not realize through actual notice. They had the notice through the recording. And so their LP tank is on that property, and as well as their potentially the neighboring lot 12 has some property that also goes on that. It is also our position that this is a safety hazard because this road cannot be constructed in a proper way, this Orchard Lane, and would thus be detrimental to the properties of 11 and 12. Further, my clients own the property that is south of lot 11, and in that property would also be negatively impacted by it. We also do not believe that, we believe that the requirements for roads would have to be a full constructed road, and once again, we do not believe they can actually construct that within the specifications they have. We're requesting that you deny Winmore Ridge minor plat, as it is not possible to even comply with the ordinance in the way that they have it drafted at this point in time. I'll take any questions that the commission may have.
Commissioners, questions?
Thank you.
I have a question. These covenants and ordinances, are they an official record on
The Settle subdivision?
Yes.
They are. They were set to, the first time they could expire, I was believe in 1985, and they automatically extend for every 10 years thereafter.
And who is the administrator of those?
It would be
An HOA is
the fellow property owners of those 11 would be who have the right to.
And they meet regularly to discuss issues? They meet regularly to discuss HOA issues?
I don't know if they do or do not.
Okay. Have they had any enforcement issues before as an HOA?
I don't know.
So there's no paper trail in establishing any formal utilization of enforcement of the covenants for that subdivision?
I do not know.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak to this from the public?
Yes, my name is Chris Keller, and representing my mother, Ardith Keller, who owns property, which is really, it's lot 12 and 13 that are together. And our concern is around Orchard Lane. We know that that property has been maintained for years, I think originally by the Suttles family who was there, and now the current one. We really did not know that there was any kind of an easement or planning for that property being a road. And our general concern is, having traffic that's that close, also considering we know the county line is very busy, may or may not be an issue. And on the other hand, in talking with Tim this week, because this part of the document was not shared with the homeowners in the mailing, in other words, the Winmore Ridge drawing. So reading through the legal description of that, was kind of difficult. And I came into town early today and was able to go into the office and get a printout of that, and even Tim in the building department helped us understand that it was only lot 4 that would have access there. The other concern we had is in the future, if they are unable to sell lots to build on. And until today, I didn't know that Mr. Suttle, that Fred was actually doing the development. So we thought the property was for sale and there was another developer coming in. But we did have a concern what prevents them from later making them, smaller lots and building smaller homes on it and so forth. So that was just a general concern, not knowing a lot of the facts or how the board works with the property. So those are my basic questions and concerns.
They will address that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak?
I'm Glennis Cooksey, and I own the property at 5359 East North County line. My parents and I have owned it for 40 years, before Harton Crossing was there. My granddaughter lives in the house now, and that's lot 5, right next to the lot they're talking about putting a street on. That's the wrong place to put a street. When they put Heartland in, they moved Raceway, and it comes out right in front of my house. You have to make a jog to get to lot 6. Just maybe, 50, 75 feet, but it is a slight jog. They don't stop at the stop sign in front of my house. My house has been hit 3 times. The last time they did $56,000 worth of damage. Every time you turn around, someone's either coming through that road, into my road. Billy Coker that spoke a while ago, they've been in her yard, and they are in the lot that Fred owns. They don't stop at the stop sign. If somebody's coming out of lot 6, they're going to get hit. And there is so much traffic there. It's not a safe intersection. Well, it's not an intersection, it's a jog, is what it is. So, it's just not a safe proposition. We can be out there mowing and be in the yard and people will come through, and I don't know how many trucks and cars have ended up in my yard or in the lot. One hit a truck, the truck come through and hit a car, came through my yard, hit a tree in the neighbor's yard, the lady that spoke a while ago. It burned to the ground, and it was about 6 feet from her house. That is a very bad intersection.
Have you talked to the county?
Huh?
Have you talked to the county?
Oh, yeah. Finally, we've called, but for a while we had trouble because part of it was Mooresville, Morgan County, and the north part was Hendricks. Well, this last time, my son-in-law went to Hendricks County Road Commission and threatened to sue them because they'd been told so many times. They have put up a barricade of some sort. It's not very strong. And I don't know whether we did the right thing or not, but we put a 4-foot wall in the middle of the yard to stop them from hitting the house and going into the lot. It is a very dangerous intersection.
I've seen your wall.
Did you?
Try and hit it.
Don't hit it, please, please. The house has had about all it can take. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public wish to speak? Does the presenter want to answer some questions, please?
Did you have specific questions, or would you like for me to answer those from the...
I asked you to answer the public's question.
Very good, okay. Okay, we're here tonight trying to get approval for a minor plat. We've got 9.5, 10-acre parcel here. It's obvious we've got a lot of remonstrance tonight, a lot of legal nitpicking and maneuvering to try to find an angle to keep this from passing. And we're not interested in necessarily in the legal gamesmanship. In fact, I feel pretty certain that on Lot 6, we could still build a home if we wanted to. We could, if we were interested in gamesmanship, we could certainly cut our easement back from 50 feet wide to 30 feet wide. That would be plenty of room for a 16-foot wide roadway and 2-foot shoulders on either side, and then build a house on Lot 6 and grant an easement across this drive, across the drive. There would be no difference in him building a home and a driveway and then granting easement across that driveway back into his property and handling this the way we're handling this. We're not here for a rezone. This does fit your minor plat ordinance, and it also fits the agricultural zoning. Okay, we're here for approval for lots that are in excess of 2.2 acres in size. That's more than 4 times the size of the parties that are here in remonstrance tonight. So we're asking for your approval tonight, and if I've failed to answer any of the questions, feel free to ask me those again.
Commissioners, you have questions of Mr. Larson? Orchard Road has been there how many years, John? Mr. Larson, I mean.
The right-of-way has existed since 1964.
Thank you. And it is only to be used by Lot 4.
Correct.
Questions from the commission?
Is there an issue with the covenants and restrictions of Lot 6?
I'd like to address that. We don't believe that a driveway is any more onerous a use than a driveway for a residential home. if we were establishing a business or a business driveway across that lot, that would be inconsistent with what the covenant and restriction says, that therefore residential use only. And we certainly think that access by way of a driveway is a part of residential purpose. If it were a residence, it would have a driveway on it. So what we're asking for isn't outside of the intended residential use stated in the covenants and restrictions.
I got a question legally for our council. The statement, all lots in the subdivision shall be known and designated as residential lots are part of the covenants. And if they had an issue with that, they'd have to pursue that outside of this subdivision because we don't enforce these things, right?
Correct, we don't. There's also a provision in this, if it's the same protective covenants, paragraph 6 says, invalidation of any one of these covenants by judgment or court order will in no way affect any of the other provisions. So if the owner believed it to be a problem, he could get a court order to invalidate it, and the rest of the covenants would stay into effect.
But that's outside of our
That's
jurisdiction.
nothing that you consider.
Right.
Any other questions or comments?
Shelby Peterball again. 5301 East North County Line Road. For this plot, but also relevant to the prior plot, have traffic considerations been made for turning off of County Line Road?
Thank you.
I don't. But to that point, I don't think it'd be any different than someone pulling in and out of a driveway, right?
Talking about 3 homes, 4 homes. But to answer her question, no, I don't know that a traffic study has been ordered for
8 homes,
for
potentially.
a total of 8 homes.
Any other questions or comments before I call for a motion?
Call for the question.
Pardon?
Call for the question. He said call for the question.
He wants you to request a motion.
I'll request a motion. I asked if there were any other questions or comments before I request the motion.
I'm calling for the motion.
I will call for a motion, please.
I'm going to have to abstain from this.
Okay.
I make a motion to accept.
Second.
I'll second.
I've got a motion and a second.
We had a motion and a second down.
JD had a second.
JD made the motion.
JD made the motion.
And Dave seconded.
All those in favor? Carries.
Thank you.
We'll call for permits and inspections. Permits and inspections.
You did exactly right.
Wait a minute, mister. How many permits and inspections? Give it to Tammy.
Let's get going, let's kind of go here.
I don't personally know, but I have another client, like an administrator, like, I would know something else today. I'll give you that.
42 permits. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I second.
42.
I don't think he's.
Hold on, he's got.
Public meeting is still going, our meeting is still going.
Inspections,
Our meeting is still going. Is that fine?
42 permits.
okay.
69 inspections.
69 years.
Okay.
You want to call for new business?
Pardon?
You want any new business?
We're still going?
Yeah.
Is there any new business?
No, can we make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Give me a motion to adjourn. Second it. Gone.
Right here.
We are adjourned.